Chapter 35. The students originally didn't know what was going on, but after hearing Jiang Xiao's words, they immediately understood what was going on. Jing Yunzhao closed her book and turned to look at Jiang Xia. Her eyes were cold. I can't tell that you're helping me. Moreover, not everyone is Chao Hongye. Not everyone is as smooth and slick as Chao Hongye. You make yourself sound so lofty. Those in the know will think that you're being kind, but those who don't will think that you're Chao Weiman's son. Jing Yunzhao, how can you say that? The class monitor is such a nice person. The study committee member sitting in front of Jing Yunzhao also turned around. This study committee member's name is Yi Qing. He's not bad looking, and his grades are second in class. He and Jiang Xia are publicly known as a couple, but the two of them haven't broken through that layer of window paper yet. To you, the class monitor is a nice person, but what does that have to do with me? Jing Yunzhao replied without hesitation, you don't understand someone's past, yet you decide someone else's life. Do you really think that you're God? My relationship with the Chao family is my business. I'm really curious, class monitor, are you so bored that you want me to apologize to the Chao family? I'd like to ask you on what basis. She indeed wants the so-called good reputation, but she won't allow others to bully her. Something like reputation, she will have it one day. If she's still being bullied by others, then she doesn't want to force herself. Jing Yunzhao's imposing manner is also extremely scary when she's angry. I already said, it's the Chao family that raised you. Moreover, if you don't go home, then you won't have any money. Jiang Xia also had a stomach full of anger, and said somewhat angrily. He's obviously doing it for Jing Yunzhao's sake. He's never seen someone who doesn't know what's good for her. No wonder no one liked her before, she deserves it. With him saying that, Jing Yunzhao's face revealed a trace of a cold smile. Everyone thinks that she owes the Chao family, but does she really owe them? Not at all. Class monitor Jiang, you grew up soaking in a jar of honey, so naturally you don't know how I live. I don't mind telling you, before I started school, I already learned how to work. You guys go to school for your future, but I go to school for scholarships. My school fees didn't cost the Chao family a single cent. Every single living expense is earned honestly. You're saying that the Chao family raised me. But why do I feel like you're mocking the Chao family? Jing Yunzhao's memories of the first 15 years of his life became clearer and clearer. When she was young, she didn't have the ability to earn money, so she tried her best to sign up for all kinds of competitions, especially those with prize money. When others participated in competitions, their parents would accompany them, but she was always alone. When she entered junior high school, she had to spend more money. She took advantage of the weekends to work part-time. However, no one wanted her because she was too young. She had to put in a lot of effort, and the money she earned was pitifully little. In the past, she thought that Yi Qing and Chao Weiman wanted her to be successful. Now, she knew that they didn't want to waste a single grain of rice. Even if she owed them a favor, she had already repaid them in her previous life. Jiang Xia didn't expect Jing Yunzhao to say something like that and was momentarily stunned. Jing Yunzhao didn't spend the Chao family's money to go to school. Even his living expenses were earned by himself. It can't be. I don't care if you have good intentions or bad intentions. From today onwards, I don't want anyone to act like class monitor Jiang, pretending to be kind and persuading me to return to the Chao family. This is the first time, so I'll bear with it. If there's a second time, I'll let you know that there's a price to pay for being a lobbyist. Chapter 36. The class was silent. Hearing Jing Yunzhao's threatening roar, some of them frowned, some of them were shocked, and all of them had a variety of expressions. Paw! Behind Jing Yunzhao, there was the sound of a book being smashed. Well said. Jiang Xia, I think you have nothing better to do than to meddle in other people's business. Don't think that I didn't hear what you said just now. Who are you trying to kidnap with your morals? Jing Yunzhao being unwilling to go back has nothing to do with you. Luckily, you said those words to Jing Yunzhao. If it were me, I wouldn't even reason with you and would send you to class 2 with a slap. Do you believe me? A girl behind him stood up and said boldly. Jing Yunzhao was slightly surprised and turned around. Looking at the girl, she sighed in her heart. Xiao Haiqing. Even when she was in prison in her previous life, she had heard a lot about her glorious deeds. Today, Xiao Haiqing was only the PE representative of Class 1. She had a carefree personality and was a tomboy, but she was very beautiful. She was completely different from Su Chu. Xiao Haiqing's grades weren't the best, but they weren't bad either. She was actually very smart, but she spent most of her time on sports and didn't like studying. When she left the Qiao family in her previous life, she would occasionally hear about Xiao Haiqing's existence from Qiao Hongye. Xiao Haiqing didn't like pretentious girls. Although they weren't in the same class, she didn't know why she was at odds with Qiao Hongye. Qiao Hongye had suffered a few setbacks because of her. She understood Qiao Hongye. With her personality, she naturally wouldn't be willing to suffer losses. She must have secretly contacted the hoodlums outside and used similar methods to deal with Xiao Haiqing. However, Xiao Haiqing was a little weak. Not only did she run away, she also beat Qiao Hongye up in a fit of anger. From then on, Qiao Hongye wanted to keep the peace. She only scolded Xiao Haiqing once in a while at home, but she didn't dare to do anything to Xiao Haiqing. After she was sent to prison, she happened to read the newspaper a few days before she died. There was Xiao Haiqing's face on it, and it said that she was a black widow from a wealthy family. According to the report, Xiao Haiqing was not idle when she was studying at the university in Beijing. She especially seduced old men. Every time she married them, those men would die, and she would naturally inherit the property and become a new rich person. Although she didn't know Xiao Haiqing very well, she knew that she was a strong girl. The word seduction was definitely not something she would do. As for the reports, they could only believe half of it. She had a very good impression of Xiao Haiqing, whether it was in her previous life or now, Xiao Haiqing. Jing Yunzhao's eyes flashed with deep gratitude. He turned to look at Xiao Haiqing and said, I've learned my lesson. If anyone dares to provoke me in the future, I'll do as you say. Little girl, you're quite smart. All right, I'll protect you in the future. The corner of Xiao Haiqing's mouth hooked up. She raised her hand and with a paw sound, she high-fived Jing Yunzhao. It could be considered that they had become friends. She was also surprised. She originally thought that Jing Yunzhao was born to be bullied, but it turned out that it wasn't the case. Under that cowardly appearance, there was actually a small universe that was about to explode. Jiang Xia's face was dark. If there was anyone in this class that he didn't want to offend, it would be Xiao Haiqing other than Teacher Jean. He wasn't afraid of a girl like Xiao Haiqing, but she was unreasonable. As long as Xiao Haiqing thought that something was right, she would never listen to other people's nonsense. If someone said too much, she would really throw a punch. Moreover, she was used to acting shamelessly. She would never admit that she had hit someone. Sometimes, in order to avoid being punished, she would even throw a punch at others when no one was around. She was very cunning. After hitting so many people, she still hadn't received any demerit points. Chapter 37. Looking at Xiao Haiqing's face, Jiang Xia immediately became listless. I don't have any other intentions, I'm just doing it for her own good. Jiang Xia pursed his lips, with a face full of unwillingness, looking just like a sissy. This kind of sissy temperament made Xiao Haiqing look down on him even more. Glancing over at him, "I don't care who you're doing it for, just don't try to disgust me and Jing Yunzhao. Don't you like to pair up with Yi Qing and that girl from the next class? Then you guys can do whatever you want, stop trying to lecture others." Jing Yunzhao also couldn't help but admire her. In the entire class, probably only she can talk to others in such an arrogant manner, and not let them have the courage to retort. This girl is really becoming more and more to her liking. In the past life, she didn't have a single friend. But now that she has been reborn for a week, she already has Su Chu and Xiao Haiqing, so it's worth it. Alright. The teacher will be here soon, can you guys not talk so loudly and affect other people's studies? Yi Qing, who was sitting in front, became angry from embarrassment. Immediately putting on the airs of a study committee member, he immediately lowered his head and scolded them. Although it looks like he's in the right, but the other side wants to find a mouse hole to hide in. It can be seen just how nervous Yi Qing is. Jing Yunzhao also isn't an aggressive person. After all, the current situation isn't right, so she doesn't have the heart to mess around with Jiang Xia or Yi Qing. On the other hand, Xiao Haiqing, who was sitting next to her, directly ordered him to change seats with her. In just a short while, Jing Yunzhao had already changed 2 people sitting next to her. This speed is really incomparable. When Ms. Jean came in, she only glanced over, but not only did she not blame her, she was actually very satisfied. Jing Yunzhao's grades are good, so sitting behind her will only affect her performance. How can that be? If it wasn't for the fact that no one was willing to sit next to her before, then she really wanted Jing Yunzhao to sit right under her nose and watch. The first day of school after his rebirth passed by with ease after a small commotion. However, after school, Jing Yunzhao found a note in his book. It said, "I'm doing this for your own good. I hope you won't be angry." Even though there was no signature on the note, Jing Yunzhao could guess who wrote it from the tone of the note. He casually threw it into the trash can. She couldn't be bothered with some self-righteous people. The scenery in Huaning County was beautiful. Even in the county town, the air was fresh and pleasant. The business development was also good. After nightfall, the lights were bright and beautiful. Jing Yunzhao rejected Xiao Haiqing and Su Chu's invitation and walked to the door of a big pharmacy alone. In front of him was the basket that looked a little dirty, but it was full of fresh Cotinopsis pelosula. She was too short on money. If she wanted to live boldly, she had to have the ability to support herself. The pharmacy in front of him was the biggest in the county. It was also quite old. It was just nightfall, so the lights inside were very bright. He could clearly see the situation inside. Jing Yunzhao didn't walk in rashly. Instead, she waited outside for a long time. The people who walked past her were all here to buy medicine. She didn't see anyone who sold medicine like her. After more than half an hour, Jing Yunzhao saw a respectable old man appear in the pharmacy. Then, she walked in without hesitation. As soon as they entered, the people in the huge Chinese medicine room were all stunned. The old man looked at Jing Yunzhao and then looked at the basket she was carrying. He was very surprised. He frowned and said, "Little girl, you want to sell medicine?" Chapter 38. After all, this was the first time Jing Yunzhao had experienced this. She nodded in confusion. She always felt that these people were looking at her strangely. Sure enough, the old man laughed when he heard this. "Little girl, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. We don't accept medicinal herbs here. You can only go to some private medicinal herb shops." However, I don't think they would dare to accept too much. Jing Yunzhao's body stiffened. She was very puzzled. However, the old man continued, "This is a traditional Chinese medicine pharmacy. If you want to buy medicinal herbs, you'll only buy them unless they're very precious and rare. Otherwise, you'll only buy some traditional Chinese medicine drinks. Most of those traditional Chinese medicine drinks have medicinal herb factories that cooperate with them. Unless your medicine is better than theirs and cheaper than theirs. Jing Yunzhao immediately understood what he was trying to say. There were 3 types of medicinal herbs. The first type was fresh medicinal herbs that had not undergone any processing. The second type was processed medicinal herbs that could be used directly. As for the third type, it was a prepared medicine made with the second type as the raw material. For example, there were some packaged powders sold on the market. Jing Yunzhao was also a little annoyed. Although she had a lot of knowledge in her head, she did not put much of it into practice. That was why she had made a mistake. Uncle, thank you for your advice. I know what to do now. However, Uncle, if I bring the processed medicinal herbs here, will you accept them? Jing Yunzhao asked. Her somewhat cool voice sounded very pleasant. Coupled with her outstanding appearance, it was easy for people to have a good impression of her. As long as the quality is good enough, the shop will consider it. By the way, little girl, if you are in a hurry to sell these things, I have a good place. The old man thought for a moment. Looking at Jing Yunzhao's obedient appearance, he could not help but add another sentence. Suddenly, Jing Yunzhao's eyes lit up. There is a bad old man in this county who is a pharmaceutical maniac. As long as he sees good quality medicinal herbs, he will accept them no matter how many there are. However, the price may be much cheaper than other places. You can go and take a look. It's not far from here. The old man said and told Jing Yunzhao the address of the maniac. Jing Yunzhao was also a little hesitant. It was night now. The place the old man said was not far, but it was surrounded by small alleys. It was not a place with a lot of people. However, after thinking about it, Jing Yunzhao still decided to make a trip. She had the space, and she had also practiced a few moves. The possibility of an accident was still very small. There was no need to worry unnecessarily. Jing Yunzhao left a few Codenopsis pelosula to express his gratitude and went straight to the place the old man had told him. There were more than a dozen alleys, and the night was not as brightly lit as the main roads. Occasionally, nightingales would stand in the surroundings and let out a few cries, making one's hair stand on end. If it was in her previous life, Jing Yunzhao would not have the courage to do so. But at this time, she found that her courage was much greater than before. She was not afraid of the unfamiliar surroundings. After 30 to 40 minutes, Jing Yunzhao found the place. There was a strange smell in the surroundings. There was a medicinal fragrance, but there were also other smells. For example, there was a burnt smell and a corrosive smell mixed together. It was very strange. This was a large courtyard. The black lacquer door seemed particularly heavy and quiet, giving a very gloomy feeling. Feeling some movement in the courtyard, Jing Yunzhao chose to knock on the door. More than 10 seconds later, with a creak, the door opened. In front of her was a face that did not look old. This person was in his 30s and looked a little listless. He looked her up and down. What's the matter? Chapter 39. The man's voice was a little hoarse. Coupled with his temperament and the surrounding environment, other people would probably be scared to the point of running away. Jing Yunzhao was a little curious and said politely, "I'm here to sell medicinal herbs." She pointed to the basket in front of her feet. The man glanced at it. "Come in." After saying that, he directly pulled Jing Yunzhao's basket in. His strength was not small. After entering the courtyard, Jing Yunzhao was immediately shocked. She saw rows of medicinal shelves, medicinal vats, and all kinds of things in front of her. However, it was obvious that many of them had been put away. The strange smell also came from the courtyard, but after getting closer, she did not find the smell so unacceptable. Master is busy. I'll take care of these things. The quality of your Codenopsis ginseng is not bad. I'll give you 30 yuan per kilogram. If you're willing, I'll withdraw the money for you. If you're not willing, you can take these things and leave. Don't come back in the future. The man was very straightforward. His expressionless face was very expressionless. For fresh Codenopsis ginseng, this price was not outrageous. Jing Yunzhao was not greedy and nodded. The man moved quickly. Once he saw that Jing Yunzhao had agreed, he cleaned up the Codenopsis ginseng in a short while. He almost checked them one by one. His meticulousness was simply outrageous. If not for Jing Yunzhao's amazing patience, she probably would not have been able to stand others doing business like this. After all the Codenopsis ginseng had been checked, the man revealed a look of surprise. He did not expect the goods to be so good this time. I'll give you an increase of 2 yuan. In the future, if you have good things, send them over, the man said again. After saying that, he went into the house. Not long after, he came out again and handed over a stack of cash. After counting, there was a total of more than 4,000 yuan. Accept everything. Unlimited? Jing Yunzhao asked. That's right, the man said coldly. Jing Yunzhao immediately relaxed. Although the people in this house were a little strange, with this sale, at least she would not be short of money for the time being. Moreover, looking at the courtyard, there were many precious medicinal herbs. Not only was there a complete variety, but there were also a lot of them. It was obvious that the owner of this courtyard was not short of money and could afford some big transactions. Jing Yunzhao took the money and turned to leave. But just as he was about to step out of the door, he suddenly felt some movement in the room behind him. He couldn't help but turn around to take a look. Master, I just received Codenopsis ginseng. The quality is quite rare. The person who came out was an old man. He looked a little scary. The middle-aged man just now was much more polite when he saw him. He also had a smile on his face. He was very kind and careful. Jing Yunzhao could not help but take a closer look at the old man. The old man had white hair and a ruddy complexion. He was quite elegant, but his white hair was messy and his clothes were a little sloppy. He was not very old, only in his 60s, but his eyes were lifeless, making people feel that he was a little pitiful. Jing Yunzhao's gaze was too eye-catching, and the old man immediately shot a sharp look at her. However, in the blink of an eye, the old man's pupils shrank. His body, which looked sharp just a moment ago, suddenly rushed towards Jing Yunzhao. Jing Yunzhao's reaction was fast. Seeing that the old man was acting strangely, she naturally hid as much as she could. However, the moment she stepped out of the door, the old man hurriedly shouted behind her, "Wait!" His voice was a little shaky and desolate, which made Jing Yunzhao have a strange feeling in her heart. She could not help but turn her head. "What's your name?" The old man looked at her. His eyes were a little dazed, as if he was recalling something from the past. He was a little surprised and a little disappointed. His expression was so complicated that it was incomprehensible. Jing Yunzhao still said. Chapter 40. When the old man heard this, his expression became a little irritable. "Your surname is Jing. What's your father's name? What about your mother? Who else is in your family?" Jing Yunzhao found it even more strange. "I'm sorry, old man. I'm an orphan. I'm the only one in my family," Jing Yunzhao replied. Yi Qin was dead and she had left the Qiao family. She didn't know where her biological parents were, let alone whether they were dead or alive. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that she was an orphan. After saying this, the old man's brows knitted together. He reached out and pulled Jing Yunzhao back into the courtyard. Then you're a local. Do you know a woman with the surname Su? She's about 40 years old. Jing Yunzhao was even more confused. She nodded and then shook her head. Her expression was a little petrified. The old man stared at her again and again. The disappointment on his face was even more obvious. Now that I take a closer look, she doesn't look like one. She's too young. Her eyebrows are so sharp and her eyes aren't gentle enough. She looks a little too heroic. The old man said something inexplicable. He exhaled and looked like he was about to collapse. The middle-aged man beside him hurried forward to support him. The old man waved his hand. My surname is Su. I've offended you just now. I hope you don't mind. It's okay, old man. Jing Yunzhao looked at him and couldn't bear to blame him. The old man with the surname Su looked very tired. He turned and walked into the house. But after taking a few steps, he turned back to look at her and said, Do you have any more goods to sell? Jing Yunzhao nodded. Yes, she had a lot. Come back tomorrow at this time. The old man said directly and didn't care about her anymore. Jing Yunzhao only felt a little baffled. She suddenly felt that it was no wonder that the person in the Chinese medicine room said that he was a strange old man. Just based on his image, there was no one as mysterious as him in Ningxiang County. However, he was just an old man. She wasn't worried that the old man would do anything to her. She still had the ability to protect herself. Jing Yunzhao directly returned to the place where he lived. When he arrived, Suchu was already a little anxious, and there was a little boy sitting on the sofa at the side. He had a white and clean appearance and was also somewhat handsome. He should be gone, Jinchin. Cousin, you are much braver than us. Going out in the middle of the night, aren't you afraid of encountering bad people? Seeing her, Suchu was relieved. I have some things to do. I'm sorry for making you guys worry. Jing Yunzhao was used to being ignored, so she didn't expect that there was someone waiting for her at home. Otherwise, she would have told her in advance. Gon Jinchin glanced at her and didn't say anything. He went straight back into the house without saying a word. Jing Yunzhao understood the meaning behind those eyes. Obviously, there was some disdain and suspicion. After all, old man Gon had taken her in as his god-granddaughter. As his own grandson, wouldn't he feel a little uncomfortable? Moreover, her reputation was so bad. Cousin has a strange temper. Ignore him. Suchu was lively. She stuck out her tongue at Gon Jinchin's back. Thinking of the strange old man's instructions, Jing Yunzhao simply explained to Suchu so that she wouldn't continue to worry the next day. However, the matter of selling medicinal herbs was a little strange after all, so naturally, she didn't mention it. By the way, Chu, I heard you mention the exam yesterday. Is it the one Grandpa requested? Jing Yunzhao suddenly thought of something and asked. Suchu's face was bitter. She suddenly raised her voice and said, Isn't that right? Cousin and I have been set a goal by Grandpa since we were young. We must study medicine in the future, even if it's Western medicine. So, he has been asking us to take an exam every month. The questions are so difficult that it makes people's hair stand on end. No. Cousin, how do you know it's Grandpa's request? Could it be that he made you? Suddenly, Suchu was stunned. Chapter 41. Grandpa was too good at toying with people, right? Suchu pursed her lips, full of confusion. After all, she and her cousin had been memorizing medical books since they were young. Even if they were a little stupid, after a long period of accumulation and nurturing, they still had some foundation. If they sharpened their guns at the last minute, they could still deal with those exams. But Jing Yunzhao, even though her grades were good, most of the things in the medical books were obscure and difficult to understand. Even now, she still didn't understand those ancient words, let alone Jing Yunzhao, who had never come into contact with these before. You're finished, you're finished. Cousin, you don't know, but Grandpa is absolutely serious about medical skills. When it's time for the exam, don't write anything you don't know. Even if you hand in a blank paper, it's definitely better than writing nonsense. Su Chu looked at Jing Yunzhao with a sympathetic look, as if she could see what she would experience in the future. In terms of medical skills, even though Jing Yunzhao wasn't proficient, she could still get started. Her starting point was higher than others. If she couldn't think of something, she just had to search for it in the spirit jade and try to understand it. And even if she couldn't understand it for the time being, those things wouldn't dissipate in her mind. Su Chu didn't know that much. Her chatterbox was suddenly opened, and she kept complaining. Listening to her words, Grandpa Gon's punishment system was still very strict. If they handed in a blank paper, it meant that they didn't work hard. The punishment they received was mostly to copy a medical book a few times and so on. But if they wrote nonsense, they would feel that there was a problem with their attitude. In this case, not only would their pocket money be deducted, but they would also be directly brought back for supervision. Not only would they have to be taught some principles, but they would also have to be brought in for morning jogging every day. They would also have to participate in clothing, food, housing, and transportation. Jing Yunzhao really admired this god-grandfather. After all, there weren't many doctors with such medical ethics these days. The next day, the school was still as usual. At night, Jing Yunzhao went to the alley as promised. What she brought was a basket of snake bed seeds. The scene this time was different from yesterday. She knocked on the door less than 3 times, and the door was already open. Moreover, the old man was sitting in the middle of the courtyard, staring at her with a serious face. His gaze made people's hair stand on end. Even Jing Yunzhao felt terrified. These herbs are not bad. Do you know what they are used for? The old man said in a strange tone. The corner of Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched. Cotinopsis pilosula is often used to injure the qi and body, or to weaken the qi and blood. Nidium pilosula is mostly used to warm the kidney and strengthen the yang. It's not the right time to pick these things. The old man acted as if he didn't hear what she said and continued, snakebite seeds need to be concocted during the hottest days of the summer for the medicinal effects to be at its best. It's not right for you to send it over now. It was only spring, how could they harvest these 2 kinds of medicinal herbs in this season? When Jing Yunzhao heard this, her face immediately turned pale. She didn't think so much. Old man Su, I'll take back these snake beds. I won't sell them, Jing Yunzhao said. She was a little worried that this old man would continue to ask her about harvesting. Keep them. They're quite good. The old man glanced at her. Come with me. After saying that, he didn't wait for Jing Yunzhao's response and directly walked to the backyard. Jing Yunzhao was a little puzzled, but after thinking about it, she followed closely behind. She saw that the old man was neither slow nor slow. The backyard was a big shed. The terrain was slightly higher, and the ground was covered with moisture-proof lime. It was full of medicinal herbs. If you don't even know the concocting season of the medicinal herbs, who would dare to buy the herbs you sell in the future? So you should come here every day to learn. The knack for this is very deep. You have some good medicinal herbs in your hands. Don't waste them. The old man's expression was still the same. She couldn't see his intentions. However, when she saw these medicinal herbs, Jing Yunzhao was a little tempted. She also learned about the concocting of medicinal herbs, but the things in the spirit jade were different from what she saw with her own eyes. Chapter 42. Jing Yunzhao always felt a sense of closeness to this old man with the surname Su. She always felt that although this old man was sarcastic, he wasn't a bad person. He wasn't like the people she met in her previous life. Although they were smiling on the surface, their hearts were very sinister. Thank you, Uncle Su. I'll definitely come to learn on time in the future. Jing Yunzhao raised the corner of her mouth, revealing a trace of a kind smile. In that case, you can only leave after you memorize this book today. Old man Su wasn't polite at all. He directly threw a book over, turned around, and went out of the door, directly locking Jing Yunzhao in this warehouse. There was enough light in this warehouse. She opened the book and saw that it was about the planting and harvesting of medicinal herbs. This book wasn't thick, but if a normal person kept memorizing it, it would take at least 1 or 2 days. However, ever since Jing Yunzhao absorbed the spirit jade, her memory had improved by a lot. Looking at the book filled with pictures and text, she looked at the tightly shut door and helplessly sat down. Taking advantage of the fact that there was no one around, she directly entered her space and began to memorize with peace of mind. In the space, time passed much slower. By the time she finished memorizing it, more than 3 hours had passed in the outside world. She knocked on the door. After a while, the man who collected medicinal herbs came over, opened the door, took her book, and said directly, "If you want to go out, recite it first." Jing Yunzhao was a little speechless towards this master and disciple. But after all, the other party had good intentions, so Jing Yunzhao directly opened her mouth to recite. It took a lot of effort to memorize a book with more than 200 pages. However, the disciple listened carefully and didn't miss a word. Occasionally, she would ask carefully if she didn't hear clearly. When she saw that Jing Yunzhao said it correctly, she would let her go. Jing Yunzhao wasn't a person who would do things half-heartedly. Since she promised to learn, she naturally put her heart and soul into it. By the time she finished memorizing, it was already late. Every word is correct. You can go now. In the future, come on time. This is the money for today's medicine. The disciple's temper was even more straightforward than the master's. After she finished speaking, she also turned and left. Jing Yunzhao had a few thousand yuan in his hand. In addition to yesterday's income, he had already earned more than 10,000 yuan. He had never thought that he could earn money so quickly in his previous life. Outside, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. The air was much better than inside the warehouse. Taking a deep breath, Jing Yunzhao retraced his steps. However, just as he exited the alley, a few people walked toward him under the streetlight. Jing Yunzhao did not dare to miss a single second. His mind was still digesting the contents of the spirit jade when he was stopped by someone. He raised his head and met Lu Jia's aggressive eyes. Ever since Lu Jia was beaten up that day, she had been recuperating at home. Right now, her face was still a little red and swollen. No matter how you looked at it, it felt unnatural. I was wondering who it was. Isn't this our school's famous Jing Yunzhao? I just saw you walking out of that alley. What's wrong? Strolling alone in such a remote place in the middle of the night. Don't tell me you're hiding a man in there. Lu Jia's face was full of ridicule. Her eyes seemed to be spitting fire. Thinking back to the day when Jing Yunzhao pinned her to the ground and gave her a ruthless slap, she felt that she had lost all her face. At that time, there was a teacher protecting her. She couldn't do anything to her. Instead, she was reprimanded by her parents. However, now that they were outside and there were no surveillance cameras, she didn't believe that Jing Yunzhao would be able to take advantage of her this time. Chapter 43. The moment she saw Lu Jia, Jing Yunzhao thought of the phrase, enemies meet on a narrow road. Lu Jia's personality was more carefree. Even though her looks weren't as exquisite and pleasant as Zhao Hongye's, she was still considered lucky to have a few older cousins who doted on her. As the red in a sea of greenery, even though Lu Jia wasn't a beauty, these older cousins still doted on her a lot. They even frequently went to the school gate to pick up this younger cousin of theirs from school. Behind Lu Jia stood 4 boys. The oldest was in his 20s and the youngest was around 17 or 18. She's Jing Yunzhao. That wild brat you were talking about? One of them asked angrily. Third cousin, she's the one who framed me. I was clearly the one who was at a disadvantage, but she wrongly accused me of hitting her in front of the teachers. Because her parents don't believe me. Lu Jia complained angrily. What a bitch. Jia, don't worry. Big brother will definitely avenge you. As soon as third Biaoji finished speaking, the 4 of them immediately formed a circle, trapping Jing Yunzhao inside. Lu Jia stood outside with a smug face. Big brother, there are many people outside. Bring her to the alley first. At this time, the night was dark and the wind was strong. There wasn't even a stray cat. She didn't believe that she could let Jing Yunzhao escape. Moreover, once she entered the alley, even if she was beaten into a steamed bun, no one would know who did it. Taking advantage of the fact that there were many people, Lu Jia directly dragged Jing Yunzhao and threatened her into the alley. There weren't many people on this street and there weren't any surveillance cameras. No one would notice. Jing Yunzhao's eyes flashed with a trace of gloominess. She seemed to be very cooperative and half pushed her all the way to the bottom of a dark wall. Damn brat, you're quite pretty. But for someone like you, even if you were given to us brothers, we wouldn't take a fancy to you. Jia, tell us what to do. We'll help you look after her. You can do whatever you want. Another cousin said. Lu Jia spat on the ground and rubbed her saliva before stepping forward. Jing Yunzhao, why don't you kneel down and beg me? Maybe I'll be soft-hearted and let you go. Jing Yunzhao clenched his fists as he recalled the martial arts styles in his mind. Stop acting all high and mighty. Do you believe that I won't strip you naked? It's so cold, and it looks like it's going to rain soon. If you don't have any clothes, you might freeze to death here. Oh right, I also brought my phone. I'll take a few pictures of you naked later and make sure you can't stay in Ningxiang County forever. Lu Jia was like an excited rooster, squawking non-stop. But after calling for a long time, Jing Yunzhao did not respond. Especially in the darkness, that sinister appearance was like that of a ghost. It was very frightening. Lu Jia widened her eyes, waiting to see Jing Yunzhao lose his head out of fear. However, after a while, she saw Jing Yunzhao's lips curl into a terrifying smile. What are you laughing at? Lu Jia's eyes almost popped out. Jing Yunzhao raised an eyebrow and reached out to take off the thin jacket she was wearing. Yo, so proactive. Let me tell you, my cousins won't fall for it. Lu Jia rolled her eyes and mocked. Unfortunately, just as she finished speaking, she saw Jing Yunzhao wrap the thin jacket around his hand like a boxing glove. She did not know what he was up to. Are you looking for a beating? Lu Jia roared again. Bang! However, just as the voice fell, Jing Yunzhao threw a punch at her nose. After wrapping the jacket, the strength was somewhat soft. However, Jing Yunzhao's strength was not ordinary. This punch was not light. When the brothers saw this, they were immediately annoyed and reached out to grab Jing Yunzhao. Chapter 44. Even if they only practiced martial arts at night, it wasn't for nothing. Before their hands could reach over, Jing Yunzhao's legs swept fiercely, directly attacking their lower bodies. They immediately staggered back a few steps. Jing Yunzhao's move caused everyone to be stunned. However, before they could recover, they heard Lu Jia cover her nose in exasperation and shout, "Brother! My nose is bleeding. It hurts." That one sentence pulled the four people back from their shock. Their anger grew stronger, and with a surge of strength, they swung their fists fiercely and smashed over. Jing Yunzhao's body dodged, and he was a little stiff. The fist brushed past his ear, and his heart shrank fiercely. His eyes looked like he wanted to eat someone. He kicked over, but another person's hand flashed past his chest, and he instantly grabbed his wrist and twisted it fiercely. The last time with Lu Jia, it was just her being beaten up, but this time was different. This was the first time such a scene had happened in her 2 lives. However, she felt that these people's movements weren't as fast as she imagined. Although it was a little difficult to deal with them, it wasn't to the extent of being defeated. After all, her cousins were men. Had they ever been tormented by a woman like this? Everyone's eyes turned red with anger. Especially when Lu Jia was still insulting Jing Yunzhao from the side, it made their blood boil. They couldn't wait to take out a knife and end Jing Yunzhao's life. That eldest Biao Ji was a man in his 20s after all, so he had quite the strength. Adding on to the fact that they had the numbers advantage, he took advantage of the fact that Jing Yunzhao was dealing with the other 3 to throw a rock at her. The few people's eyes turned red with anger. Only Lu Jia saw it clearly, and she was shocked. The stone was very sharp. If it hit him, he would definitely be seriously injured. It might even take his life. After all, she was a 15-year-old girl. Seeing this scene, she couldn't help but panic. However, the arrow had already been knocked, and she couldn't stop it in time. Even when she saw Jing Yunzhao's disgusting face, she didn't want to speak. With a bang, the stone fell to the ground. Third cousin. Lu Jia was dumbfounded when she saw him. Third cousin fell to the ground with blood all over his head. Following this sharp voice, the eldest cousin was also stunned. The corners of his lips trembled, and he was somewhat in disbelief. He had clearly aimed at Jing Yunzhao just now, but in the blink of an eye, Jing Yunzhao had dodged it. Not only had he dodged it, but Old Third had also inexplicably fallen under his rock. That's right, he had seen it. Jing Yunzhao had sensed that he was about to make a move. Even though she knew that she would hit third brother if she dodged, she still dodged without hesitation. Furthermore, she had looked at him with a mocking expression at that moment. She did it on purpose. Third cousin was currently twitching on the ground, blood bubbling out of his head. After a while, that person actually stopped moving. Lu Jia shakily picked up the phone, but it was snatched away by the cousin. "You can't call the police. If you call the police, I'm done for. His life is over. He was the one who took the stone, and he was also the one who hit her. If she called the police, he would definitely be arrested. Eldest cousin. I'm begging you. Third cousin is about to die." Lu Jia's tears kept falling. She was scared out of her wits as she hurriedly begged. She had 4 aunts, and although these 4 cousins weren't biological brothers, they had always had a good relationship. But now, her eldest cousin wasn't allowing her to call the police. What should she do? Was she supposed to watch her third cousin bleed to death? At that moment, Jing Yunzhao gave him a cold glance before striding away. "You can't leave." The eldest cousin shouted as though he had gone mad. Jing Yunzhao stopped in her tracks, and the corner of her mouth revealed a mocking smile. "You were the one who killed him. You were the one who took the stone. You were the one who killed him." The eldest cousin shouted crazily. Chapter 45. As soon as the eldest cousin finished speaking, not only were the other two cousins dumbfounded, but even Lu Jiao looked at him in disbelief. But at this time, the eldest cousin was already possessed. He glared fiercely at Lu Jiao. If it weren't for the fact that I wanted to avenge you, things wouldn't have turned out like this. Lu Jia's eyes reddened again. She felt wronged. But thinking about it carefully, the eldest cousin was right. Now that the third cousin was like this, the third aunt would definitely not let her go. But if the eldest cousin was punished because of her, the eldest aunt would also be angry. Her parents were already very dissatisfied with her recently. Right now, only by letting Jing Yunzhao shoulder this matter would she be able to save Biao Ji from disaster. At that time, the third aunt's anger would also be transferred to Jing Yunzhao, and she might not be attacked by everyone. There seemed to be a demon in her heart inciting her. Looking at the bloody third cousin on the ground and the indifferent Jing Yunzhao, a layer of hatred emerged in Lu Jia's heart. If it weren't for Jing Yunzhao, all of them would be fine. Eldest cousin. Hurry up and call the police. Don't let Jing Yunzhao run away. Lu Jia's words immediately made her position clear. The other two Biao Jis were already panicking to the point of no return. They knew that they couldn't escape from the responsibility of this matter. Once they heard Lu Jia's words, they didn't dare to say anything more. In their hearts, they also hoped that Jing Yunzhao, that wild brat, would bear the responsibility of this matter. They were all children with parents. If something really happened, their families would be heartbroken. But Jing Yunzhao was different. Wasn't she an orphan? Then even if she went to prison, no one would be sad. At this time, the few of them were on the same side. The eldest cousin finally breathed a sigh of relief. He held the phone with trembling hands and called the police. However, these people were still young after all. At this time, such a big change had happened, and they even forgot the most important evidence. Of course, with Jing Yunzhao here, it was impossible for these people to erase the fingerprints on the stone. The police cars and ambulances arrived quickly. Seeing the young faces present, the police officers' faces turned ugly. Jing Yunzhao had never thought of leaving, so when he got into the car, he was very straightforward. As for the third cousin, although he had lost a lot of blood, he was not dead. He was carried into the ambulance and left quickly. Police uncle, it was Jing Yunzhao who did it. She was the one who smashed third cousin. Lu Jia's face was filled with horror as she tried her best to calm down. That's right. It was her. Officer, look at all the big and small injuries on our bodies. She knows martial arts. She was the one who hit us. The eldest cousin's eyes were red and he was a little impatient. The other two lowered their heads in fear and trepidation, neither saying anything nor refuting. This matter had already been notified to all the parents, and presumably, they would arrive soon. Jing Yunzhao had already severed ties with the Qiao family, so no one could contact him. Finally, after thinking about it, he only informed Gong Songbai, his grandfather. She also didn't want to trouble Grandpa Gong because of her own matters, but after all, she was living in Grandpa Gong's house. Now that she was in the police station, she should give him an explanation so that they wouldn't worry. Jing Yunzhao didn't speak the whole time. She just waited patiently for Gong Songbai to arrive. If there wasn't an adult present, some words would be useless. Before Gong Songbai arrived, Lu Jia's mother and 3 aunts had already arrived. They were all women. The men in the family should be in the hospital at this time, but these women were really scary. The moment they entered, they had a vicious look on their faces. Chapter 46. In Jing Yunzhao's previous life, when she accidentally killed Qiao Weimin in self-defense, Qiao Hongye and the Qiao family's friends were also like this. They rushed over angrily and looked at her as if they wanted to eat her alive. "Mom, how's cousin now?" Lu Jia's eldest cousin immediately asked when he saw his family. Her eldest aunt sighed. "We don't know the situation yet. Anyway, the doctor said it was quite serious when we came over. He lost too much blood and might not be able to be saved." When she said this, her eldest cousin heaved a sigh of relief. Jing Yunzhao coldly looked at his expression, her eyes full of disdain. He said that they were cousins who had a good relationship, but now, in order to protect himself, he wanted someone else to die. Without the testimony of the person involved, he would be able to push all the blame to her. This kind of person made her want to vomit. "It's all your fault, Jing Yunzhao. If it wasn't for you, my third cousin wouldn't be like this." Lu Jia shouted at the top of her lungs when she thought of how well her third cousin usually treated her. Jing Yunzhao didn't want to say anything, but when he heard her say this in front of so many people, he couldn't hold it in anymore. "Because of me. You were the ones who stopped me from fighting. You were also the ones who injured your own people. Now you're pushing all the blame onto me. What kind of logic is this?" Lu Jia panicked when she heard this. "Nonsense. You were the one who threw a rock at my third cousin. Ha! So you also know that it was a rock?" Jing Yunzhao coldly snorted. "Uncle Policeman, such a big thing happened. I'm sure that the assault weapon was brought back. At most, it'll be fine after a test. There's the victim's blood and the perpetrator's fingerprints on it, isn't there?" When he said this, everyone present was stunned. Things happened too suddenly. They had completely forgotten about the rock and only wanted to push the blame onto Fang Jingji, especially that eldest Biaoji. His originally somewhat handsome face was now somewhat malevolent. He was at a loss out of fear as he glared at Jing Yunzhao. His heart was in a mess. Suddenly, he saw the jacket that Jing Yunzhao was holding. He suddenly thought of something and his eyes brightened. No! Jing Yunzhao was wearing a jacket when he hit us. She had wrapped her hands with her jacket when she took the stone, so there were no fingerprints on it. As for me, in order to stop her, I snatched it from her, so it stained with my blood. Eldest cousin hurriedly explained. This strange expression made the police officer frown. Even his own mother found it strange. However, he was his son after all. How could he not believe him? She angrily rebuked Jing Yunzhao with a sorrowful face. "How can there be such a vicious and merciless girl like you in this world? If anything happens to my nephew, even if we have to spend all our money, we'll make sure you're in jail. Don't be so absolute." Jing Yunzhao swept a glance at the woman before looking at the eldest Biaoji and said, "Yes, I did use my jacket to cover my hand, but from the creases on my jacket, you can tell that it only covered one hand. If I wanted to pick up a rock, I wouldn't be able to do it with only one hand. Uncle Policeman, the reason why I did this wasn't to erase the traces. It was because I knew that it was hard to see clearly in the middle of the night. Since I was only defending myself, I didn't want to cause accidental injuries to others because of a momentary mistake. Wrapping my jacket like this can reduce the force." Jing Yunzhao didn't expect things to develop like this. Her original plan was to not leave any traces and teach them a lesson, so that these people wouldn't be able to point their fingers at her. However, the moment the other party picked up the stone, she suddenly felt a chill in her heart. There was clearly no hatred between the two of them, but the other party wanted to kill her. Chapter 47. She hadn't learned martial arts for long, so she wasn't proficient. When she was entangled with them, she was pulled back many times, but she didn't suffer any major injuries. So at that time, the one who fell to the ground was her. With Lu Jia's personality, if she fell to the ground and didn't get up, what greeted her wouldn't be an ambulance, but abandonment. It was already raining outside. Although it wasn't heavy, it was enough to erase a lot of traces. At that time, even if she bled to death in the rainy night, no one would know who did it. So when the other party was ruthless, she had already thought of this. At this moment, compared to eldest Biao Ji's words, Jing Yunzhao's words were obviously more reasonable. Moreover, even though the wounds on the other people's faces and bodies were very obvious, Jing Yunzhao's face also had some scratches. Also, her arm was obviously injured. For men fighting against a girl like Jing Yunzhao, no matter how one looked at it, it wouldn't be the latter who came looking for trouble. You shameless immoral ghost. My nephew's life and death is unknown, yet you still dare to say this. Didn't your parents teach you how to be a person? You say it wasn't you, then who else could it be? It could be my son who did it. Police officer, my son's relationship with his nephews has always been very good, even closer than blood brothers. The woman raised her voice and howled again. What a good, even closer than blood brothers. At the critical moment, the one who didn't let the police was your son. If it wasn't for him delaying for a while, maybe the injured one wouldn't be as serious as now. The woman's confident and unintentional words made the eldest cousin's face turn pale. The others shrunk their necks fiercely, looking like they were completely frightened. Police officer. My granddaughter wouldn't take the initiative to look for trouble. The woman had just finished howling when Gong Song Bai's voice came from behind her. Jing Yunzhao heard this and felt a little touched, and couldn't help but feel grateful. Although she recognized this god-grandfather, she and Gong Song Bai had only met a few times. She didn't know much about him. But she had been to the police station twice. The first time, Gong Song Bai helped her without hesitation, and this time, he clearly knew that it was a serious crime to injure and even murder, but he still trusted her. This kind of attitude, even a blood grandfather might not be able to do it. Jing Yunzhao sighed in his heart, and so did Gong Song Bai. From the bottom of his heart, he liked this little girl who had medical skills. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come forward again and again. This girl was only 15 years old, but she had already come to such a place twice in such a short period of time. She was so young and yet she was already being questioned by so many people. Who knew how she was going to survive in the future? She had no parents. As her god-grandfather, if he didn't help her out, wouldn't her life be even more difficult? Grandpa. Jing Yunzhao stood up. He was grateful to the old man, and his eyes couldn't help but moisten. Girl, Grandpa knows you've been wronged. Don't worry, as long as you're innocent, no one will do anything to you. Gong Song Bai immediately comforted her. She's aggrieved. Look at what you've done to our child. It's fine if it's just a few hits, but there's one lying in the hospital right now. The long-winded woman continued to chatter. Girl, tell Grandpa what's going on. Gong Song Bai's heart was also shocked, but he still calmed down and asked Jing Yunzhao. Jing Yunzhao didn't add oil to the fire. She only told the truth about the few people she met on the road. Her memory was pretty good, so from beginning to end, she didn't miss a single word. Whatever the other party said or did, she didn't hide anything. Chapter 48. When Jing Yunzhao finished explaining everything, Lu Jia's expression turned into horror. She looked at her as if she had seen a ghost. What she said wasn't fake, but she didn't leave anything out. Such an abnormal memory really made people feel terrified. I don't believe it. My son doesn't even know you, why would he stop you? I think they saw you doing something improper, so they came forward to persuade you. Not only did you not listen, you even used violence against them. That big cousin's mother said aggressively. If it was really like what this girl said, then wouldn't her son's life be over? Anyway, no matter what, she didn't believe it. Her son was hers. How could she not know what kind of character he had? Now I know why your son would do this kind of framing thing. It turns out he learned it from you, his mother. If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Jing Yunzhao looked coldly and said without any trace of politeness. You unlucky child. When the woman heard it, she reached out and wanted to pounce over. Jing Yunzhao moved her body to the side, causing the woman to miss and fall to the ground. Jing Yunzhao saw this and said, Police uncle, the probability of this kind of thing happening isn't small. You also saw it. Also, although I'm young, I won't let others wrongly accuse me. First, I didn't wantonly pick a fight. Second, there are no fingerprints. Just based on the one-sided words of these jackals of the same tribe, it's impossible. Although the other side had a lot of people, there was no conclusive evidence. She couldn't admit it no matter what. Jing Yunzhao's words were powerful and powerful. Her gaze was firm like a stone. Everyone who saw it felt like a knife was scraping their hearts. That's right. You think you can win because you have a lot of people? Isn't there still one lying in the hospital? When he wakes up, I think the truth will be revealed. Gong Songbite said angrily. At this time, no matter how they argued, it was hard to say who was right and who was wrong. That place was remote. There wasn't even a surveillance camera. They still needed to investigate carefully. Both sides didn't want to admit defeat. They stared at each other for the whole night. The next morning, the hospital finally called. The operation was over. He's in a vegetative state from excessive blood loss. The woman who answered the phone was shocked. She looked at them and said into the phone, We haven't found anything yet. That girl doesn't admit it. She said that her fingerprints weren't on the weapon. The voices were getting softer and softer. Jing Yunzhao was too lazy to listen to them. They were just slandering her. However, the word vegetative made Lu Jia and her cousins feel much better. However, the news that made them happy only lasted for a short while. The police officer also received a call with a solemn expression. When the call ended, he looked at Lu Jia, Jing Yunzhao, and the others with a serious expression on their faces. There's news from our colleagues who went to investigate the case this morning. A resident in the opposite building happened to see you. The police officer paused. Although you're young, the nature of this case is quite serious. While there's still time, it's better to turn yourself in. It'll be too late in a few seconds. Jing Yunzhao curled his lips, but his expression remained unchanged. As for Lu Jia and the others, their faces turned pale once more. The police officer had been observing their behavior. At this time, he already knew what was going on. This group of children were still young. After experiencing such a big change, it was impossible to hide it without any flaws. I didn't do it. Suddenly, one of the cousins who hadn't uttered a word all night shouted in horror, It was a complete accident. Boss, he accidentally did it. It has nothing to do with us. Chapter 49. The one who spoke was the youngest cousin other than Lu Jia. He was only 17 years old, so his mental fortitude was naturally weaker. After a night of torture, his eyes didn't have much vigor. He looked listless with a pair of panda eyes. His body was still trembling, and even the corners of his clothes were wrinkled and deformed from his pinching. Jing Yunzhao sympathized with him. He had been hanging his head for the entire night, and his neck was a little stiff. We really didn't do it on purpose. The young cousin cried as he looked at the woman beside him. Jia was in a bad mood. We wanted to make her happy and wanted to bring her to a nearby KTV to sing. We didn't expect to meet Jing Yunzhao on the way. She was alone, and we thought we could teach her a lesson. So we brought her to an alley and beat her up. but we didn't expect that we couldn't beat her. Eldest cousin panicked and took a rock, but she dodged it and hit third brother instead. Her cries were heart-wrenching. After enduring for an entire night, the fear in her heart had multiplied. That's right. That's what happened. On the other side, the remaining second cousin shrank back and said with reddened eyes, "You're talking nonsense. It was Jing Yunzhao who did it." The eldest cousin stood up instantly and rushed toward fourth brother like the wind. He swung his arm around the other party's nose. 2 streams of blood flowed out of the other party's mouth as he fell to the side. He had fainted from fear. The moment this happened, the surrounding policemen couldn't sit still. They immediately went forward to hold him back. "I didn't do it. Mom, you have to believe me. It's all Jing Yunzhao's fault. It's all her fault. Jia, tell them. Tell them that this has nothing to do with me." The eldest cousin went completely crazy. He clamored like a wild beast, anxious and scared. Lu Jia was only a 15-year-old girl. She had never seen such a scene before. She knew very well that they were finished the moment the eldest cousin spoke. She was finished too. Tears streamed down her face as she squatted on the ground. She hugged her head and cried, "Eldest cousin didn't do it on purpose. We only wanted to teach Jing Yunzhao a lesson. It's because Jing Yunzhao dodged it that it ended up like this." Lu Jia. "You scourge, you're also spouting nonsense, you're also spouting nonsense." Eldest cousin's legs were quite long. Even though his upper body was being pulled, he still kicked Lu Jia in anger. Not only was the eldest cousin angry, even the 3 aunts present seemed to have gone crazy, looking at Lu Jia with eyes full of disgust. In the previous generation of the Lu family, there was only one male, and that was Lu Jia's father. However, the 4 daughters of the Lu family that were married off all gave birth to sons. Only Lu Jia's father only gave birth to a daughter. Although it was a pity, there was only one girl among the same generation after all. She was more or less special, so they usually doted on her more. However, they didn't expect that the girl they had always doted on would bring such a big disaster to their families. At this moment, the injured third cousin's parents had also rushed over and happened to see this scene. "Jia, we didn't do anything wrong to you. How could you harm us like this?" The cries came in waves. Jing Yunzhao also exhaled. Sympathy? Not at all. She was calmer than ever. Some people looked sad when they were pitiful, but when they were hateful, they were like wild beasts that would bite. The police officer also heaved a sigh of relief. There were indeed people in the residential building across the street who saw them, but they only saw Lu Jia and a few people provoking them. Later on, when they went to the alley, due to the darkness, no one saw what happened inside. Furthermore, due to their young age, no one expected such an incident to happen. No matter what, the truth of the matter had been revealed. Chapter 50. After confirming the testimony and going through all the procedures, Jing Yunzhao finally left the police station. Before he left, the cries and curses from inside were so noisy that he couldn't get any rest. "I've already informed your teacher before we came. Since you've caused such a big commotion, you shouldn't go to school today. Go back and relax," Gong Songbai sighed as he looked at Jing Yunzhao and comforted her. Jing Yunzhao nodded. Today was Friday, and there were no classes tomorrow or the day after. Her grades had always been good, and she had already learned a lot of things. It was rare that she could save some time, so it was better to use it on her medical skills and martial arts. Especially after this incident, she felt that she was too weak. If she had enough time to practice martial arts, those people wouldn't even be able to get close to her. Unlike now, although she made the other party suffer, her face and body were also left with a lot of scars. Touching the slight scratch on her face, Jing Yunzhao's mood was complicated. That Gone Song Bai wanted to say something but hesitated. After thinking for a bit, he opened his mouth and asked, "Girl, although the law and order in this county is good, you are still young. Don't run around at night, especially that place. It's all dark alleys. If something really happened, there wouldn't be any evidence." Gone Song Bai had good intentions, Jing Yunzhao was clear in her heart. If she was Gone Song Bai's biological granddaughter, he wouldn't be so gentle in persuading her. Maybe he would have already angrily reprimanded her. But Grandpa Gone was right. Although she knew martial arts, with her age and walking around alone, it was simply tempting others to commit a crime. "I know, Grandpa. I won't go at night in the future," Jing Yunzhao replied. Gone Song Bai was a bit puzzled. Won't go at night. That meant she still wanted to go to that place. Jing Yunzhao and the Qiao family had already broken off their relationship. Logically speaking, the possibility of interacting with those relatives wasn't big. Why would she keep thinking about going to that place? Gone Song Bai was already quite old, and Jing Yunzhao was a girl. Moreover, they weren't blood-related, so there were some things that weren't appropriate to ask. He thought to go back and chat with that girl, Chu Chu, and ask her to show more concern. After sending Gone Song Bai off, Jing Yunzhao went to the medicinal market again and bought a lot of seeds. She had 10,000 yuan in her hands, so the seeds she bought were a lot more complete. In addition to some seedlings, the money was spent in the blink of an eye. On the way back, she didn't forget to inform Uncle Su that it wasn't convenient for her to go over at night. It was just that this old man's temper was really strange. When he heard Jing Yunzhao's words, he thought that she was shirking her responsibilities and slacking off. With a wave of his hand, he directly threw her dozens of books and requested that she go once a week. Every time she went, she had to recite at least 5 books. Otherwise, no matter how good her medicinal ingredients were, he was determined not to buy them. Although this request was a bit excessive, Jing Yunzhao gladly agreed. With the space, her time was 5 times that of ordinary people. Moreover, she could find these books in the spirit jade, so it was more convenient for her to memorize them. It wasn't difficult. For 3 days, Jing Yunzhao locked herself in her room. Unless it was necessary, she rarely showed her face. In the space, she spent half a month reciting and practicing martial arts almost day and night. When she came out, she clearly felt that her body was a lot lighter. Her whole body had lost a lot of weight. However, compared to before, her skin was a lot better. It wasn't as dark as before and didn't have any temperament. And in the school, there was no sign of Lu Jia. Chapter 51. Because this matter was too serious, Lu Jia's parents had already handled the procedures for her to drop out of school. Lu Jia's cousin had also been locked up. Although it was an accident, because he didn't call the police in time, it caused the injured to be more injured. In the end, he ended up in a vegetative state. As for Lu Jia, although she was not yet an adult, her guardian did have a certain responsibility, and compensation was inevitable. However, Lu Jia's parents' generation had completely broken off because of this matter. Her aunts no longer doted on her as much as they did before. Instead, they were extremely resentful. Jing Yunzhao's life also changed a lot because of this matter. In the past, her classmates looked at her with disdain or dislike, but now, it had completely turned into fear. Outside, Jing Yunzhao was even more mysterious than before. There were even people who said that Lu Jia had called a lot of brothers from the underworld, but they still couldn't defeat Jing Yunzhao. They said that Jing Yunzhao had strange martial arts skills and even had a big brother from the underworld helping her from behind. Hearing these rumors, Jing Yunzhao only felt that it was funny. Yunzhao, isn't your attitude a little too good? Do you know what the people in class think of you? Xiao Haiqing nudged her arm and asked in a low voice while they were in class. Xiao Haiqing couldn't figure out how there could be such a weirdo like Jing Yunzhao in the world. Not only did she cause trouble every 2 or 3 days, but it was getting worse and worse. Yet, she acted as if nothing had happened. During class, she was just as usual. The only abnormal thing was that when she talked about things on a daily basis, there would always be some messy names of drugs that they couldn't understand. What can I do when the mouth is on someone else's face? Jing Yunzhao was also helpless. Previously, she wanted to regain her good reputation, but just as her reputation improved a little, Lu Jia's incident happened. Now, everyone knew that she had martial arts in the alley in the middle of the night. Who would be brave enough to be friends with her like Suchu and Xiao Haiqing? Even Suchu had been looking at her like she was looking at a monster these days. She couldn't help but ask her if she had any other heroic deeds in the past. Now, even people from other schools know that you're a violent person. Xiao Haiqing was amused at the mention of this word. Look at your matchstick body. You call yourself a violent person. You're more like a paper man who will run away when the wind blows. Have you ever seen a 2D person eat 3 bowls of rice for a meal? Jing Yunzhao asked in amusement. Ever since she started practicing martial arts, her appetite had skyrocketed. Every time Xiao Haiqing saw her eating, she would be shocked. Oh right, next Saturday is Yiqing's birthday. Xiao Haiqing glanced at the student committee member in front of her and whispered. What does that have to do with me? Jing Yunzhao curled his lips. She liked women like Xiao Haiqing. She didn't act pretentious and was straightforward. As for that Yiqing, she was completely like a rich missy. Her face was filled with pride. The way she looked at others was either with sympathy or disdain. Even when making friends, one had to weigh the other's worth first. Are you stupid? With Yiqing's personality, do you think she'll stop after her birthday? I heard she already booked a few tables at Shanghai restaurant. If nothing goes wrong, then as long as it's not one of the bottom 10 students, she'll definitely invite everyone except you. Xiao Haiqing said with a face full of schadenfreude. Jing Yunzhao was stunned. She didn't think of this at all. In her past life, she was someone who stayed away from the crowd. She didn't remember getting invited, nor did she attend any gatherings. In this life, her reputation was even scarier. Who dared to invite her? However, isn't this good? I don't have time to waste. Jing Yunzhao was actually very happy. Time was life, so she had to save as much as possible. Chapter 52. Xiao Haiqing, upon hearing this, couldn't help but roll her eyes. Do you understand or not, this is discrimination. Her birthday indeed has nothing to do with us, but she can't discriminate. When other people bring this up, who knows how they'll laugh at you. It's not like you don't know what these people think. Are you prepared to spend your entire 3 years of high school under suspicion and isolation? Xiao Haiqing said earnestly. If it wasn't for the fact that they were still in class, then she probably wouldn't be able to hold back from slamming the table. Jing Yunzhao looked at Yiqing, who was sitting in the front row. Then what do you think we should do? Isn't it even more ridiculous to come uninvited? Hee, actually I've already booked a VIP room for you. When the time comes, all we need to do is order a table full of dishes and enjoy. Xiao Haiqing said with a wink. Fragrancy Restaurant was the county's largest and most mysterious restaurant. Even a single one of them was hard to find, and the price was also very high. Although Yiqing's family background wasn't bad, but at the same time she was also a bit stingy, so she definitely wouldn't book a VIP room. She and Jing Yunzhao also didn't need to get involved. When the time comes, all they needed to do was to appear upstairs and let people take a look. It wasn't like they wanted to show off, but rather to avoid some gossip. Okay, it's my treat, Jing Yunzhao said with a smile. Actually, she didn't really care. After all, there was no lack of gossip. However, it was rare for her to make a friend like Xiao Haiqing, so she still needed to listen to her opinion. No need to be so polite, it's not like I'm lacking in money, Xiao Haiqing said with a wink. Jing Yunzhao, however, insisted, then I'm not going. Xiao Haiqing, upon hearing this, stared with her eyes wide open and curled her lips. She had never seen such a twisted girl before. She didn't even want to take advantage of others. What a stubborn donkey. But to be honest, this personality of hers made her like it more and more. Okay, then you treat. Be careful that I don't make you poor. Xiao Haiqing looked happy. Due to Jing Yunzhao's presence, teacher Jean, who was on the stage, had been trying her best to restrain herself. However, she didn't expect that the more the two talked, the happier they became. She directly called Xiao Haiqing up to the podium to answer the questions. Xiao Haiqing was a freak. Even though her exam results weren't always ideal, she rarely made mistakes when answering questions. After answering the questions perfectly, she left teacher Jean with a dumbfounded expression and elegantly returned to her seat. One was a genius while the other was a freak. Teacher Jean had nothing to say. The class passed peacefully. However, after a few classes, Yi Qing's figure indeed became active. He shuttled through the class. Other than the students who ranked at the bottom of the class, everyone was given an invitation card. Of course, Jing Yunzhao did not receive one. To all the students who received the invitation, it's my birthday on Saturday, and I've made reservations at Fragrant Ocean Restaurant. If you're free, you must come. Especially the class monitor. If you don't come, then I'm going to ignore you. Yi Qing, with a face full of shyness, stood on the podium and said. Looking at the class monitor, Jiang Xiao's eyes were filled with love. Yi Qing, did you forget about Jing Yunzhao? Jiang Xia suddenly asked. These past few days, he had been paying attention to Jing Yunzhao. He found that she was really pitiful. Other than Xiao Haiqing, no one else was willing to pay attention to her. Last time when he tried to persuade her, he thought that she would change. But who would have thought that not only did she not change, she even became worse, and caused such a huge ruckus with Lu Jiao from the next class. Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched. Some people suffered from a serious disease called narcissism, which was incurable. Chapter 53. I didn't forget about the class monitor, I just didn't invite her. Yi Qing looked at Jiang Xia with a wronged expression, as her hands trembled. It's like this, I feel like it's my birthday, so of course I have to have fun. It'll be a bit awkward for unfamiliar people to gather together, so I don't want everyone to have a bad time. Xiao Haiqing coldly snorted, as she didn't want to hear such hypocritical words at all. Unfamiliar people. Yi Qing was the study committee member of the class, who always prided herself on being aloof. There were only 2 or 3 students that she had a good relationship with. Of the people that she invited, many of them were people that she hadn't even talked to before, so how could those people be considered familiar? She was clearly trying to embarrass Jing Yunzhao, yet she had to make it sound so fake, as if Jing Yunzhao owed her something. Rip. Xiao Haiqing directly tore up the invitation. Yi Qing, you're right, it'll be awkward for unfamiliar people to gather together. So I'm sorry, but I can't attend your birthday party. After all, we're not familiar with each other. Also, Yunzhao and I already agreed to go eat together, so it'll be just the 2 of us, so the air will be a bit better. Xiao Haiqing's mouth was also quite poisonous, cursing Yi Qing for polluting the air in a roundabout way. Yi Qing's temper wasn't that good, but she normally liked to hold it in. Now that she was humiliated by Xiao Haiqing in front of so many classmates, she immediately became angry. Fine, if you two like the quiet, then go eat by yourselves. Congratulations Jing Yunzhao, you've made a rich friend. You might as well just have Xiao Haiqing pay for your tuition and support you. Jing Yunzhao expressionlessly replied, it's just a meal. According to what you're saying, you're prepared to pay for your classmates' tuition and support them for the rest of their lives. Miss Yi is so rich, even if she wanted to take care of everything, she'd have more than enough. Unlike me, a poor brat, who still needs Yunzhao to treat me. Xiao Haiqing also immediately helped Jing Yunzhao to clear things up. With the three of them going back and forth, the whole class was completely silent. Yi Qing's eyes were slightly red, and the corners of her mouth were slightly bent down. Her eyelashes were constantly fluttering, and tears were flashing in her eyes, as if she had suffered a great grievance. After holding it in for a few seconds, she said, Jing Yunzhao, you have to be careful. The food at Fragrant Sea Restaurant is expensive. Remember to bring more money, in case you don't have enough money to pay the bill. At your age, no one would dare to ask you to work to pay off their debts. But since we're classmates, you can come to me if you run out of money. It's okay to pay for one more table of food. These words were full of provocation. Jing Yunzhao pursed his lips and suddenly recalled a rumor about a classmate from his previous life. Before, she couldn't remember who that classmate was, but after interacting with each other these days, only Yi Qing was able to match her impression of him. Yi Qing's father was a businessman. His family ran 4 to 5 chain supermarkets, which wasn't small at all. In a place like Huaning County, he could be counted as someone with some reputation. However, later on, her father invested all of his operating funds in other places. Not only did he lose everything, but he also owed a bunch of debt. Yi Qing directly fell from a rich missy status to the point where she couldn't even compare to a normal classmate. However, she was used to being arrogant since she was young. Later on, she continued to pretend to be rich, and forced her mother to the point of suicide. Jing Yunzhao remembered, when that happened, it was probably not long after she dropped out of school. In other words, the current Yi Qing's family was probably already in a state of depression. Suddenly, Jing Yunzhao's impression of Yi Qing turned into disgust. A girl who didn't even care about her own parents, no matter how well dressed she was, still made people want to vomit. Chapter 54. Jing Yunzhao faintly glanced at Yi Qing, and that quarreling voice came to an abrupt end. As if she had suddenly forgotten that there was such a person in front of her, she turned her head to look elsewhere. But when Yi Qing saw Jing Yunzhao turn her head to the side, the expression in her eyes was a bit horrifying, as if she was a dirty thing. Inexplicable. It must be because Jing Yunzhao was scared and didn't dare to pay attention to her. Jing Yunzhao, you don't have any money on you, so I advise you to apologize to Qiao Hongya and borrow some money. After all, she's your little sister, isn't she? Zhang Xia, who was sitting in front, turned his head and quietly advised. Borrow my ass. Will you die if you don't meddle in other people's business? If you like Qiao Hongya so much, then why don't you go and do it? All day long you're like a fly buzzing around Yunzhao's ears. If there's a next time, do you believe I won't sew your stinky mouth shut? Xiao Haiqing threw a book over with a pa sound, and it just so happened to hit Zhang Xia's face. That beautiful arc made Jing Yunzhao want to clap her hands and cheer. The corner of her mouth hooked up, and she gave Xiao Haiqing a chest hug. Well scolded. That's only natural. Recently I've been restraining myself, otherwise I would have dug out his 18 generations of ancestors and scolded them all. Xiao Haiqing deliberately flipped her long hair, and made a proud expression. This made Jing Yunzhao very happy. Recently when she was with Xiao Haiqing, the other party had always been gentle and soft, which made her think that Xiao Haiqing was different from her previous life. Jiang Xia only knew how to use his mouth. If he really fought, a grown man like him wouldn't even be as good as a woman like Xiao Haiqing. Now that he was being scolded by Xiao Haiqing, he didn't even dare to say a single word. Yet he still loved his face, so he hurriedly changed the topic and acted as if nothing happened. Coward! Xiao Haiqing curled her lips in disdain. Seeing Jiang Xia's attitude, Yi Qing also felt uncomfortable. Hatefully walking down from the podium, he angrily smashed the tables and chairs. Unfortunately, no one paid any attention to him, so he finally settled down. In the blink of an eye, it was Saturday. Jing Yunzhao left the house early and went to the alley first. This time, he only brought one ginseng. It looked pretty good. He also wanted to confirm if Old Man Su had the ability to buy it. The price of ginseng was not fixed. Some ginseng cost a few thousand yuan per kilogram, while others cost tens of thousands or even millions per ginseng. Jing Yunzhao's ginseng consumed a lot of blue spring water in her space. Other herbs were watered with water that was diluted hundreds of times. However, the ratio of blue spring water to water for this ginseng was 1 to 10. Every long strand of the ginseng was carefully preserved. Even the little bug that took the ginseng out of the space was reluctant to part with it. It was enough to prove that this ginseng was a good thing. You don't have any herbs today? Having finished memorizing the medical book, Old Man Su looked up and asked. I do have one. Let me show it to you. If you can buy it, then buy it. If not, don't force it. Jing Yunzhao felt quite sorry for this old man. With such a weird temper, besides that cold disciple of his, there was no one else around. What's with the nonsense? If you have it, then take it out. Stop being so long-winded. Old Man Su glared at her. Although they haven't known each other for a long time, but Jing Yunzhao already knew this old man's habits like the back of her hand. She didn't mind his tone at all and took out the ginseng. This old man was also quite amazing. Even through the package, he seemed to be able to smell the ginseng. His expression immediately changed to one of shock and caution. Carefully taking the ginseng from her hand, when he opened it, his eyes almost popped out. Such a good thing, and you're using this crappy thing to wrap it up. Good thing the strand isn't broken, otherwise you don't need to come here anymore. Chapter 55. The way Old Man Su touched the ginseng was like a pervert looking at a woman. He observed her from head to toe for a long time, his eyes emitting an old green light. 3 million. You can take the money, but keep the thing. Old Man Su straightforwardly said a number, but he couldn't let go of his hand. However, the way he looked at Jing Yunzhao became more and more passionate, as if she was a treasure bowl. He sighed in his heart. Such a good thing, even in the capital, was rarely seen. If he cut it off and ate it piece by piece, he would be reluctant. It was better to soak it in wine, strengthen the body, and store it for a long time. At this time, Jing Yunzhao was already dizzy from the 3 million figure. In her previous life, let alone 3 million, she didn't even touch 30,000 yuan. However, she didn't lose her reason. Old Man Su, if you don't have that much money, then forget it. Don't sell this courtyard just to buy my ginseng. Wasn't this Old Man Su just an old man? How much money could he have? If because of this old man didn't have a place to stay in the future, and his old age was miserable, she would feel bad. After all, Old Man Su was still good to her. When Old Man Su heard this, he immediately blew his beard and glared. However, Just as he was about to reprimand her, he thought of the ginseng in his hand and immediately extinguished the fire. He said in a rare soft voice, "You are looking down on me too much. This amount of money is nothing to me. Xing Yuan. You are responsible for transferring the money to the girl." The person called Xing Yuan was the 30-year-old middle-aged man beside the old man. The other party had a cold and hard face, but when facing Old Man Su, his attitude was respectful and his expression was much more amiable. However, at this time, Jing Yunzhao had made Old Man Su happy, so this Xing Yuan looked more amiable than before. "I don't have a bank card." Jing Yunzhao was also somewhat flustered. "Then when we return, Xing Yuan will take you to do one." Old Man Su impatiently waved his hand and carried the ginseng treasure back into the house. He didn't stay for a moment longer. Jing Yunzhao was somewhat helpless. "Uncle Xing Yuan, is this ginseng really worth so much money? The tree you've brought is of sufficient age. Moreover, there isn't any damage to its appearance. Naturally, its price won't be low. However, such a good thing is hard to come by." Uncle Xing Yuan was astonished for a moment before replying. Jing Yunzhao also sounded an alarm in his heart. Selling ginseng once was enough. If he did it more often, Old Man Su might not be able to hold back his curiosity. However, it had to be said that Old Man Su and this Uncle Xing Yuan were both pretty good people. Although the medicinal ingredients that she had brought with her were not as expensive as this ginseng, their quality was still rare and exquisite. However, the two of them had accepted them without saying anything. If it were other people, they would definitely be unable to help but ask a few more questions. The alley was remote, but there were banks nearby. With Su Xingyuan leading the way, although Jing Yunzhao was young, he did not attract the attention of others. She needed a lot of money to go to school, and she also had some daily expenses, so she had more than 100,000 yuan in cash with her. The rest of the money was divided between 2 bank cards. After the money and goods were settled, Jing Yunzhao went to the Fragrant Sea restaurant as promised. The Fragrant Sea restaurant was located in the center of the county, but it occupied a large area. The furnishings inside were even more noble. Jing Yunzhao had heard people say that the owner of the Fragrant Sea restaurant was not a local, but a member of a large family in the capital. It was also said that the owner's ancestors came from Huaning County. They would occasionally come back to worship their ancestors. For convenience, they built such a large restaurant. Yunzhao. As soon as he entered, Xiao Haiqing, who was sitting and waiting, suddenly jumped out. "You're really late. I thought you were going to stand me up." Chapter 56. Xiao Haiqing was wearing a black coat today. Her long hair was tied up, and although she didn't have any makeup on her white skin, her temperament looked a lot more mature, with a bit of experience and straightforwardness. "I just went to get some money, so I came a bit late. Have Yi Qing and the others arrived?" Jing Yunzhao raised his eyebrows and asked. Xiao Haiqing pursed her lips. "That's right. They came early and are already in the hall." "Oh right, when they came in, they even asked me to ask you if we're not full. She said that if we're not full, she'll treat us to a few more dishes." "What kind of people are they?" Xiao Haiqing's original intention was very simple. She didn't have any intention of competing with Yi Qing. She just wanted to let others know that Jing Yunzhao wasn't easy to bully. But this Yi Qing's temper was really bad. These past few days, she had been sneering behind Jing Yunzhao's back. She and Jing Yunzhao didn't care too much about it, but the other side was really endless. Since she already said that she wants a few more dishes, then why don't we just do what she wants? "Come on, let's go upstairs." Jing Yunzhao pulled Xiao Haiqing's hand and entered through the glass door. Xiao Haiqing was stunned by Jing Yunzhao's attitude, and was a bit absent-minded. Jing Yunzhao wasn't such a passionate person. What's wrong with him today? At home, did he take the wrong medicine? At this time, Jing Yunzhao had a smile on his face. His entire temperament changed a bit. Full of confidence, the curve of his mouth was brimming with the taste of youth and sunshine. He wasn't as lifeless and indifferent as before. This was all because of the 3 million. Of course, Jing Yunzhao wasn't satisfied with this income. He just felt that the door to a new world had opened, and he vaguely felt that he should strive for the brightest places. In her past life, she had always lived in the shadows. She didn't have the chance to come in contact with money or the career she loved. But the heavens gave her a second chance. She had the space, this heaven-defying cheat. In just a short period of time after her rebirth, her life was already very different from before. Before, she thought that as long as she let nature take its course, it would be fine. But today, her thoughts changed. 3 million was simply not enough. What she wanted was a real life, a life full of endless possibilities. He had already died once. What was there to be afraid of? As soon as the two of them entered the hall, they couldn't help but be shocked by the luxurious design. This hotel had more than 10 floors, and in the middle, there seemed to be a hollowed-out luminous column. The sparkling crystal chandelier was full of romantic colors, and in the middle of the hall under the chandelier, there was an exquisite small fountain pool with some golden and red carps swimming in it. Although there were hundreds of tables in the hall, each of them was very independent and did not feel crowded or messy. On the contrary, this amazing area made the hotel a little empty and quiet. The 2 tables that Yi Qing booked were not very good, or it could be said that they were on the only way for people to come and go. No matter which level of railing one looked down from, it could be seen clearly. It seemed to be the focus of attention, but in fact, compared to other places, this position would make people feel a little uncomfortable. Jing Yunzhao, if you don't have a place to sit, just come over. Today is my birthday. On such a happy day, I won't bother with you. Yi Qing saw the two of them pass by and immediately said with a smile. Today, she was wearing a pink winter dress and a short woolen jacket. This outfit was fine in the hotel, but if she were to step out of the door, she would definitely be cold. Chapter 57. The table beside Yi Qing was already filled with people. After saying that, she pretended to glance over the 2 tables, and her eyes revealed a look of pity. There's no more seats. How about this, I'll get someone to add 2 more chairs. You guys can sit behind everyone, and when it comes to getting food, just let others help. You don't have to worry about it. If you ask me, your table is still a bit crowded. If some of the students feel uncomfortable, I don't mind inviting them to sit with us. Jing Yunzhao walked over and looked at Yi Qing without the slightest bit of fear. She was originally tall and thin, and today she changed into a new set of clothes. Her clothes no longer gave off that rustic feeling. Her whole person was fresh and clean, and with that confident temperament, she looked more like a rich family's daughter. Her light tone and attitude made Yi Qing feel a bit of pressure. Let's not beat around the bush. You also don't need to pretend with us. You said you booked a table, then why don't you tell us where it is? Besides, even if you really did book a table, what evidence do you have to prove that it wasn't Xiao Haiqing who paid for it? Everyone knows that Xiao Haiqing's family is very well off, so she definitely has the ability to do so. Yi Qing pointed out. Jing Yunzhao rubbed her forehead, and was completely speechless towards this Yi Qing in front of her. Although she was young and didn't know any better, but when her family was in trouble, she was still able to pretend that nothing happened. It was clear that her nature was already rotten to the core. Jing Yunzhao also didn't want to waste any more words with her, and waved to a passing waiter. Can you please take us to the Star Hall? Okay. The waiter was full of smiles, and was very diligent. There were a lot of private rooms in Fragrant Sea Restaurant, and the inside of the rooms were all somewhat exquisite. The second floor was mostly romantic, the third floor was suitable for family gatherings and formal occasions, and as for the fourth and fifth floor, it was mostly for business and political exchanges. They wouldn't just let people in, so there was a certain degree of privacy. Further up were the rooms, and the higher the floor, the better the service and environment. The room was booked by Xiao Haiqing. Because it was only the two of them, they specifically chose a room with a beautiful environment. It was on the second floor, and if one opened the curtains, they could also see the situation downstairs. Jing Yunzhao's understatement really pissed Yi Qing off. However, after thinking about it for a moment, he felt relieved. Whether or not Jing Yunzhao had money would have to wait until the end of the meal. He snorted and sat down. Let's eat first. Don't worry about them. These students all had their own set of principles and standards in their hearts. They also felt that adding Jing Yunzhao and Xiao Haiqing wouldn't be a big deal. It was just that it was Yi Qing's birthday after all. No one wanted to touch Yi Qing's bad luck on this day. It could be considered giving her face. Yi Qing immediately ordered the dishes to be served. Not long after, plates of exquisite dishes were served. The taste of this Fragrant Sea Restaurant was the best in Ningxiang County. It almost instantly attracted everyone's attention. Who would remember the unhappiness just now? Holding the dishes in their hands, they began to celebrate. At this time, Jing Yunzhao and Xiao Haiqing had also arrived at the Star Hall. As soon as they entered the room, Jing Yunzhao felt a lot more relaxed. The Star Hall's layout was on the dark side. Under their feet was transparent glass, and below the glass was the starry sky. It was as if they were stepping on the stars, and the exquisiteness was projected all around, as if they were in an illusion. It was extremely beautiful. This kind of room was a bit special. What they cared about was the enjoyment of the soul, so the price was also on the expensive side. Xiao Haiqing apologetically smiled at Jing Yunzhao. Yunzhao, there's an extra charge for this room. When she booked the room before, she didn't want Jing Yunzhao to pay. Although there were a lot of rooms in this Fragrant Sea Restaurant, there were even more guests. Changing rooms was a bit more difficult. Chapter 58. Xiao Haiqing was afraid that Jing Yunzhao didn't have enough cash on her, so she reminded her in advance. She wanted to fork out the money, but she was worried that it would hurt Jing Yunzhao's self-esteem. She was in a dilemma. However, Jing Yunzhao acted as if nothing had happened. She just nodded and sat down steadily. The dishes were ordered in advance. Jing Yunzhao was also hungry. Anyway, there was only her and Xiao Haiqing, so there was no need to be reserved. She directly asked the waiter to serve the dishes. Xiao Haiqing came from a good family, so she didn't think too much when she was choosing the dishes. When she saw the exquisite but expensive dishes being served, she was a little restless. The cold dishes at the beginning were still acceptable, but towards the end, cinnamon clams with pearls, mandarin duck emerald golden belt, blue waves swimming dragon, soaring dragon wings. In fact, it was just sautéed jade belt with soy sauce, garlic lobster, steamed grouper with ancient method, shark fin Buddha jumps over the wall. Of course, this was only a small part of the menu. In order to prove herself, Xiao Haiqing ordered almost all of the main dishes in the restaurant. Not to mention the fact that she couldn't guess what the dishes were, even the taste of the food was unfamiliar to her. There were even some dishes that Jing Yunzhao had never heard of before. Yunzhao, I feel bad for letting you pay for such expensive things alone. How about this? Let's each pay a portion. Xiao Haiqing probed. Jing Yunzhao was eating happily. There's no need. I said that I'll treat. It's okay if there are more dishes. I'll pack some later. I have 2 friends at the place where I live. They can be eaten for many days in the fridge. When Jing Yunzhao said this, Xiao Haiqing felt even more guilty. It's my fault. I wanted to be happy, but I didn't know when to stop. It's good that you know. It's shameful to waste food. So, hurry up and eat. Let's wipe these things out. Jing Yunzhao lowered his head and continued. Since there were no outsiders in the room, he rolled up his sleeves and the atmosphere suddenly changed. I thought all good students were above the common populace. It turns out that you're actually like this in private. Xiao Haiqing couldn't help but laugh with a bitter face. Her expression became more and more interesting. However, Xiao Haiqing also sighed inwardly. Don't judge Jing Yunzhao based on how sloppy her actions were. No matter how you looked at it, she couldn't tell that it was vulgar. The same action would look completely different on different people. Looking at Jing Yunzhao eating so happily, Xiao Haiqing couldn't help but smack her lips. In the end, she simply threw caution to the wind. Slow down, leave some for me. Aw. This dish is really top-notch. Have another bite. Don't fight with me. The 2 of them ate in full swing. After a while, the door to the private room opened. 2 guests, the guest downstairs has gifted you a plate of wealth and honor. Please enjoy. The waiter politely brought it up. The 2 of them took a look. It was just leftover tofu mixed with scallions. The guest downstairs. Apart from Yi Qing, it couldn't be anyone else. Xiao Haiqing didn't even say anything, when Jing Yunzhao placed the dish in his hands into the waiter's hands. Can I trouble you to send this back and tell the girl who asked you to send the dish that, this dish tastes pretty good. Let her try it. If she asks for the name of the dish or the ingredients, just tell her the truth. Jing Yunzhao, on the other hand, wasn't that generous. The dish she sent back was indeed a delicacy called coral 100-flower abalone. It was juicy and delicious, but all that was left was the broth and the decorative flower carvings on top. This dish was worth more than 1,600 renminbi. Yi Qing would probably vomit blood if she took a look at it. Jing Yunzhao never had the intention to flaunt his wealth. If Yi Qing didn't provoke him, then she could just eat this meal in peace. However, the other party just had to chase after him and embarrass himself. Chapter 59. When the waitress delivered the dishes, she was also in a bit of a dilemma. If it wasn't for the girl downstairs saying that she was familiar with the customers here, she wouldn't have delivered the dishes from the other tables. Now that she saw that the customers not only didn't get angry, but even asked her to return the leftovers, she was secretly happy. From the looks of it, these 2 groups of customers don't get along. However, it was clear that the table she served downstairs couldn't be compared to the 2 in front of her. Especially the girl who spoke. Not only did she have a great figure, but her looks were also top-notch. Moreover, her temperament was even more noble. She should be the daughter of some big family, right? The waitress courteously accepted and followed Jing Yunzhao's instructions. You're also a bad person. Yi Qing loves her face the most. Giving you leftover tofu with spring onions, she was hoping that you'd be so poor that you couldn't even afford a meal. Yet you slapped her in the face so straightforwardly. Oh right, when I came here I heard that Yi Qing's table costs 1,600 per table. That is to say, the dishes we're sending over are the price of her entire table. Xiao Haiqing laughed even more happily, as if she could already see Yi Qing fuming. Jing Yunzhao pulled the corner of her lips. The tree wants peace, the wind will not stop blowing. I didn't want to mess with her. There were only 2 reasons why Yi Qing was against her. First, her grades had always been number 1 in the entire school. In the same class, she definitely beat Yi-Qing, the study committee member. Second, it was because of Jiang Xia. Yi-Qing liking Jiang Xia was a fact that everyone knew. However, Jiang Xia just had to like Qiao Hongye. For Qiao Hongye's sake, he would meddle in her business. Yi-Qing was such a self-centered person, she definitely thought that there was something between her and Jiang Xia. Adding on her family background, it made Yi-Qing feel that her existence was an insult to her proud life. Jing Yunzhao, has anyone ever told you that you've changed a lot? I have a pretty deep impression of you. Before, you were just good at studying, so people said that you were amazing. But in reality, everyone could bully you. But recently, it doesn't seem like that anymore. You're pretty amazing. You didn't lose out even after being bullied a few times. You almost caused a life-threatening incident, yet all you did was stir up some trouble. It didn't have much of an effect. Xiao Haiqing said, and couldn't help but give her a thumbs up. Jing Yunzhao's eyes were half-curved. You're not good. Jiang Xia trembled in fear with just one sentence. Also, she had developed into a super strong woman in her previous life. Although her reputation in relationships wasn't too good, she was still so powerful that no one dared to provoke her. Do we have to boast about each other like this? I will blush. Xiao Haiqing laughed. Really? Is it because of the red wine? Jing Yunzhao also said happily. He reached out and clinked his glass with Xiao Haiqing's and drank it all in one gulp. The hotter the atmosphere, the better. But on the other side of the hall, Yi-Qing had already been blinded by anger. Feeling humiliated, his face was burning, he was flustered. Jing Yunzhao was really thick-skinned. She didn't know where he got the leftovers and used them to humiliate her. What's wrong with your hotel? Are you going to deliver whatever they ask you to deliver? This is leftovers that have been stained with other people's saliva. Who knows how many germs are in it? Who knows, maybe the person who just ate it is still sick. Yi-Qing didn't care about her face anymore, and spoke sarcastically. Jiang Xia, who was sitting beside her, frowned. Yi-Qing, don't be unreasonable. Our classmates are all here, how ugly is that? Hearing that, Yi-Qing became even sadder. How is it ugly? Is there anything uglier than being humiliated with leftovers? I was kind enough to give her a gift of riches, but what did she give me? If she really had the ability, why didn't she give me something that hasn't been eaten before? She just had to give me leftovers. Does she think I'm a beggar? Chapter 60. Yi-Qing's eyes were red, as if she had completely forgotten who was the one that started this. Looking at the expensive leftovers, she couldn't help but feel jealous. Isn't Jing Yunzhao just a wild girl without parents? What right does she have to humiliate her like this? Yi-Qing, don't be like this. We were the ones who sent the leftovers over first. A female student beside her couldn't take it anymore and reminded her. Yi-Qing was the study committee member. Normally she was very gentle and had a good personality. Who would have thought that she would change so much? Especially now, in front of so many people, she yelled and screamed like a shrew over a dish. Just too embarrassing. They were all 15 or 16 years old and already cared a lot about face. Who could stand Yi-Qing's antics? So what if I sent it over first? There's still so much leftovers from my dish, where's hers? Everything in the dish has been eaten, it's dirty. If you want to speak for her, then eat it. Yi-Qing was so angry that he reached out and grabbed the plate of leftovers from the waiter and threw it in front of the girl who spoke. Suddenly, the plate made a crashing sound and the soup splashed everywhere. The faces of the surrounding students were also stained with a lot of soup. Yi-Qing was a bit regretful after taking action. She was just too angry, but since she already said it, it was impossible to take it back. What's more, she always cared about face. Subconsciously turning her head, she still had a face full of anger. Everyone couldn't stay calm anymore. It's fine if she, Yi Qing, was angry at Jing Yunzhao, but why did she have to vent her anger on them? Although they ate Yi Qing's food, but Yi Qing did take the initiative to invite them. Wasn't it all for her birthday? Now look, not only did they not eat anything good, they even got into trouble. You're going too far. You really think you're so great just because you're the study committee member. At least Jing Yunzhao didn't bully her classmates like you. You better apologize right now, or else we'll all pretend that you don't exist in this class. A male student angrily stood up and said. You want to isolate me like you isolated Jing Yunzhao? Who do you think you are? Don't forget that you're eating and drinking my food. What right do you have to lecture me like this? Besides, what did I do wrong? You guys are here to celebrate my birthday. What right do you have to speak for Jing Yunzhao? Yi Qing was still unrepentant. She was indeed a little scared, but it was impossible for her to admit defeat. As soon as she said that, her classmates were all angry. The few of them quarreled loudly, attracting strange looks from the people around them. Yi Qing's face was red, but he endured it. Yi Qing, I thought you were a gentle person, but I didn't expect you to be such a person. However, this matter is indeed because Jing Yunzhao is too stingy. It's fine if he gave us food, but he just had to give us leftovers. How about this, Yi Qing, you get someone to make 2 more servings of this coral 100-flower abalone for everyone to try as an apology. Today, we all came out to have fun, so we can't lose our harmony because of one person, right? Jiang Xia was famous for being a nice person. At this moment, he didn't forget to put in a few good words. But what he said made everyone unhappy. Even the people at the table next to them couldn't help but laugh. This guy was young, but he had a self-righteous personality. Moreover, he was also a bit selfish. Everyone else was about to fight, yet he was still thinking about that dish. He didn't even forget to take advantage of the girl. Of course, Jiang Xia didn't think this way. He felt that since everyone was quarreling because of the 100-flower abalone, then they should just use the 100-flower abalone to settle it. It could also show Yi Qing's magnanimity and let Jing Yunzhao see that the dish she spent so much effort to find was actually nothing in their eyes. They could eat it whenever they wanted. Chapter 61. Jiang Xia at this moment felt like he was being magnanimous and played the role of a peacemaker. But when Yi Qing heard this, her face turned from red to white. The reason why she was angry wasn't just because Jing Yunzhao sent over a plate of leftovers, but because of the price of the dish. This dish was the same price as all the dishes on her table, and now they want her to order 2. Where did she get that much money? And for this birthday celebration, she begged her parents for a long time and only managed to get 500 yuan. But how was that enough? Without any other choice, she could only sell off all the birthday gifts her parents gave her and buy herself some pretty clothes. The rest of the money was only enough to treat everyone to a meal. Jiang Xia, don't say any more. We're not beggars. The reason why we came wasn't because of the meal, but because of her. Who would have thought that she would bully us like this? Since it's like this, then we don't want to stay here any longer. We'll be leaving first. The girl who was splashed with soup stood up, picked up her jacket and prepared to leave. But Yi Qing was worried. With this girl taking the lead, how could the others sit still? Wouldn't she be even more embarrassed? Immediately, she stepped forward to stop her. You're not allowed to leave. My legs are on my body, what right do you have to stop me from leaving? The girl directly flung Yi Qing's hand away and angrily glared. The girl's name was Yang Tian Tian. Her relationship with Yi Qing was pretty good before, but Yi Qing didn't treat everyone like this before. Also, today, to celebrate Yi Qing's birthday, she even changed into a new set of clothes. She was giving Yi Qing face and didn't want to embarrass herself. But Yi Qing spilled a plate of soup and ruined her new clothes. Who knows how her parents will scold her when she gets home. That's not allowed. Everything you just ate was bought by me. You have to listen to me. Yi Qing began to pester endlessly. Young Tiantian's face was red with anger. How much is it? I'll pay you back on Monday. Now get the hell out of my way. You're the one getting the hell out of my way. If you can't pay, then just say it. What's the point of only knowing how to bark and stall for time? Yi Qing was even more angry. Once his temper flared up, the two couldn't avoid physical contact. This young Tian had already made up her mind to leave, so how could she just let it go? She also used all her strength to rush over, but Yi Qing's actions were somewhat shameless. He scratched her skin until it was burning with pain. In a fit of anger, she simply threw away the clothes in her hands and directly fought with Yi Qing. The people around them were dumbfounded. Some tried to stop the fight, while others tried to help. For a moment, it was a mess. When the waiter saw this, he immediately felt that something bad was going to happen. He quickly went to call security. However, just as the waiter left, he saw that young Tian somehow lost her balance and fell in the direction of the table and chair. Jing Yunzhao opened the curtains of the private room and saw this scene. His heart skipped a beat. Oh no, something happened downstairs. Let's go down. What's wrong? What did Yi Qing do again? Why should we care about what they do? Xiao Haiqing hadn't seen the situation yet. Her face was flushed red from the wine as she moved closer to the window to take a look. She shivered and her mind instantly became clear. When she turned her head, Jing Yunzhao had already rushed out. Downstairs, it was a mess. A group of students were trembling in fear. But they were all children after all, so they didn't know what to do. Only to see young Tiantian's forehead was red and bleeding. Her hand was covering her right eye, and the blood on her forehead was flowing down her eye. It looked extremely terrifying. Get out of the way. Jing Yunzhao quickly went forward and opened young Tiantian's hand to take a look. Only to see that her eye was somewhat protruding, and the blood in her eye was frightening. Chapter 62. Young Tiantian's eye injury wasn't light. If it wasn't treated in time, it would definitely leave a huge sequela. Moreover, other than her eye injury, the injury on her forehead wasn't small either. Even if the ambulance came, the first thing they would do would be to treat the bleeding on her forehead and not her eye. Did you call the ambulance? Xiao Haiqing asked nervously as soon as she appeared. Haiqing, there's a pharmacy next door. Go and buy some hematite and angelica powder. Hurry up. Jing Yunzhao quickly instructed. She turned and stared at the flustered waiter. Please bring some fresh pork over. I need it urgently. Although Xiao Haiqing didn't understand Jing Yunzhao's intentions, she still obeyed her orders. There was a pharmacy next to Fragrant Sea Restaurant, so she ran over. However, the waiter was hesitant. The ambulance will be here soon. This classmate had suffered such a big injury. She definitely had to bear some responsibility. What if this strange girl made the injury worse? She couldn't bear the responsibility. Jing Yunzhao could understand these people's thoughts, but at this moment, she was even angrier. Hurry up. If something happens to her eye in the future, can you take responsibility? Jing Yunzhao shouted coldly. Her imposing manner shocked everyone. At this time, young Tian had already fainted from the pain. A person's reaction couldn't lie. If the injury to her eye wasn't serious, Yang Tian wouldn't have covered it immediately. Moreover, the eyes were the most fragile. Do as she asked. Everyone was stunned. Then, they remembered a strange and magnetic voice. Jing Yunzhao glanced over and met a pair of peach blossom eyes. However, she immediately missed it. She couldn't even remember the face clearly. After hearing the stranger's words, the waiter obediently went to the kitchen. Only then did Jing Yunzhao feel relieved. Xiao Haiqing was very fast. In less than 2 minutes, she had already brought back the things that Jing Yunzhao wanted. After waiting for the waiter to bring the pork, Jing Yunzhao followed the steps in his memory. He kneaded the 2 medicinal herbs into the pork and pressed them on the protruding eyeball of Yang Tian. Her eyeballs were slightly protruding and needed to be gently rubbed back in. After a while, he saw some poisonous blood flowing out of her eyes. Only then did Jing Yunzhao breathe a sigh of relief. However, Jing Yunzhao was also amazed when he recalled his subconscious actions just now. She was so anxious just now that she even forgot that she was not proficient in medicine. Fortunately, she still knew some of the basics. Moreover, she had memorized this treatment method. In addition, her brain had absorbed the essence of the spirit jade. At this time, it was not strange for her to use it. Instead, it was as if she had done it countless times. Removing the poisonous blood from Yang Tiantian's eyes was only a matter of time. When the ambulance arrived, they immediately sent her to the hospital. "Miss, I'm afraid you'll have to accompany me." The man who spoke just now suddenly reminded her. Jing Yunzhao was stunned. However, he continued, "Didn't you just save her? If there's a problem, you'll have to take responsibility." The corner of Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched. However, there was no room for resistance. He could only nod and get into the car. Inside the ambulance, the medical staff did some simple procedures to stop the bleeding. Jing Yunzhao already knew what was going on. She had already confirmed that Yang Tian would be fine, so she wasn't too worried. Only then did she take a closer look at this unfamiliar man. The waiter listened to his words and followed him all the way here. He was probably the person in charge of Fragrant Sea Restaurant. Chapter 63. The man was tall and straight, about 24 or 25 years old. The collar of his white shirt was slightly open, revealing a silver necklace with 2 rings. The material was not fancy. Perhaps he had rushed out in a hurry, so he did not have time to put on the dark blue coat in his hand. However, he did not seem to be cold. His body was slightly tilted back, and his brows were slightly furrowed. Jing Yunzhao only noticed his appearance now. He was extremely handsome, and his pair of peach blossom eyes were slightly raised even though he was not smiling. His thin lips were curved upwards, and his skin was fair. His entire silhouette was perfectly matched. However, he had a bit of a playboy's aura, and his appearance was very attractive. Jing Yunzhao still felt that it was better for men to be simple. A man who looked better than a woman could not be controlled by ordinary people. Her gaze lingered for a few seconds before she directly looked away. "I'm ugly." Jing Yunzhao's action attracted the other party's attention. His dark eyes stared at her, sizing her up. Jing Yunzhao felt that it was strange. "It's all right. Not bad." Li Xiaoyun's smile became even wider. He had lived for so long, and this was the first time someone had used this word to describe his appearance. Just now in the hotel, he was in a corner downstairs and heard the name Jing Yunzhao a lot. And the scene of the incident, he saw this girl rushing down from the 2nd floor with his own eyes. It seemed that she was the main character that the quarreling girls were talking about. "You were the one who sent people off with leftovers just now?" Li Xiaoyun asked with a smile. It could be said that the leftovers were the source of this bloody incident. That's right, but this sir, your waiter sent the leftovers to me first. Is there a problem with me returning an eye for an eye? Jing Yunzhao asked subconsciously. This man was baffling. Could it be that he saw that she was young and wanted to make her bear the responsibility of this incident? Seeing that Jing Yunzhao was immediately on guard, Li Xiaoyun immediately said, "Of course there's no problem. I was just asking out of curiosity." Jing Yunzhao glanced at him, and did not continue to pay attention. After all, young Tian was still lying there, and other things were better left for later. Shanghai Restaurant was located in the center of Huaning County, and was only a few streets away from the hospital. Not long after, young Tian was directly pushed into the emergency room, leaving Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyun staring at each other. But at this time, Jing Yunzhao suddenly remembered that Yi Qing seemed to have escaped. When the ambulance arrived, they clearly didn't see Yi Qing's people, otherwise they would definitely have come together. Young Tian was inexplicably hospitalized. After the other students regained their senses, they quickly ran over. Those who were familiar with the Yang family had already called to inform them. Young Tian and Li Xiaoyun and Li. However, by the time her parents arrived, young Tian's wound had already been bandaged. She was already lying in the ward, sleeping peacefully. "If anything happens to my daughter, I will get justice from you even if I have to risk my life." Mother Yang, as soon as she arrived, rushed to the bed. Seeing her daughter's appearance, she was extremely distressed, and turned to Li Xiaoyun. Jing Yunzhao frowned, and looked at Li Xiaoyun with a complicated expression. In her view, Li Xiaoyun's responsibility was not big. If it wasn't for Yi Qing's insistence on causing trouble, then things wouldn't be like this. Not to mention, Li Xiaoyun escorted her all the way here, and paid all the expenses, so he was still responsible. Of course, young Tian's parents only knew that their daughter was injured at the hotel, and did not know the details of the incident. So this kind of reaction was normal. Chapter 64. Li Xiaoyun's attitude was very humble and didn't refute, but the other students couldn't hold it in anymore. "Auntie Yang, actually this isn't the hotel's fault, it's all Yi Qing's fault." Yi Qing spilled the leftover juice on Tian, and her attitude wasn't good either. Tian wanted to leave first, but Yi Qing wouldn't let her. The two of them accidentally hurt Tian. Seeing that the other students were about to speak, Jiang Xia immediately spoke as a representative. Auntie Yang heard this and her face didn't look too good, accidentally. She was so fierce, "How is it an accident? We asked the doctor when we arrived, and her eye was almost ruined. Also, her head lost so much blood, how long will it take to recover? What if it leaves a scar? Oh right, who's Yi Qing? Is it you?" Jing Yunzhao was the closest and spent the most time in the room, so she was also the most worried. Therefore, Mother Yang subconsciously thought that the girl in front of her was the Yi Qing they were talking about. "Auntie, I'm afraid you've got the wrong person." Beside her, Li Xiaoyun actually took the initiative to help and said, "She's Jing Yunzhao. If it wasn't for her helping your daughter deal with her eye injury, then her eye might not even be able to use in the future." Although Li Xiaoyun was young, but his aura was quite intimidating. That natural peach blossom face of his had now retracted some of his playboy aura, and his attitude was very serious. Hearing this, the Yang family's parents were stunned. It was this girl who helped their daughter deal with her injury. How was that possible? When they arrived, they already asked the doctor. The doctor honestly said that the injury on the forehead was a small matter, and the only side effect was that it might leave a scar. However, the eye was luckily treated in time, otherwise even if she didn't lose her sight, she wouldn't be able to see as clearly as before. At the time, they were still thinking that since there were so many people in the hotel, maybe a kind doctor helped them. But who would have thought that this kind doctor was the same age as their daughter? Also, this name was a bit familiar, and seemed to be in the same class as their daughter. The young family's parents suspiciously looked at Jing Yunzhao, then looked at everyone else. Seeing everyone else nod their heads, they couldn't help but believe it. "Auntie, please don't blame Jing Yunzhao. Although this incident started because of her, at least she's already made up for her mistakes." Just as the young parents were about to thank her, Jiang Xia interrupted. Jiang Xia's attitude was very sincere. If it wasn't for his serious attitude, everyone might have thought that he was doing it on purpose. "What do you mean?" Father Yang's face turned cold. "Oh, it's like this. We were all eating in the lobby downstairs, and Jing Yunzhao and the girl next to her were eating in the VIP room upstairs. In a fit of anger, she sent a plate of leftovers over, which made Yi Qing unhappy. Tian Tian spoke up for Jing Yunzhao, so Yi Qing vented her anger on Tian Tian. Jiang Xia explained word by word. After he said that, Jing Yunzhao became a complete villain. "Jiang Xia, are you still human? You're too good at twisting the truth," Xiao Haiqing angrily said. Jing Yunzhao's face was cold. "Uncle, auntie, it's true that I have some conflicts with Yi Qing, but I wasn't the one who started it. I was upstairs, so I didn't know why a fight suddenly broke out downstairs. If I'm the cause, then I'm willing to take responsibility. But if someone wants to push all the blame onto me, then I won't admit it. Also, I believe that everyone here saw the whole thing. Whether or not it's like what Jiang Xia said, everyone here knows." Chapter 65. With Jing Yunzhao's words, the other students all had a guilty conscience. To be honest, Jing Yunzhao really didn't do anything wrong. Even if it was that leftover dish, it still couldn't be blamed on her. "Auntie, it's actually like this. Yi Qing treated us all to dinner, but left out Jing Yunzhao. She wanted to make things difficult for Jing Yunzhao, but she didn't expect Jing Yunzhao to also book a VIP room at Shanghai restaurant. So Yi Qing felt uncomfortable, and during the meal, she always suspected that Jing Yunzhao was lying to us, so she asked the waiter to send some leftover tofu. Originally the waiter didn't want to, but Yi Qing insisted, so the waiter had no choice. The girl who spoke had a good relationship with Yi Qing and Yang Tiantian. Seeing Yang Tiantian's unconscious state, she also felt a bit guilty. The young family's parents didn't care about the conflict between Yi Qing and Jing Yunzhao at all. Their faces were also a bit impatient. Until the moment when this classmate talked about their daughter's injury, the two's faces became even uglier. "Yi Qing, this girl was mentioned by their daughter before. Their daughter once praised Yi Qing for her good looks, excellent grades, and even said that although her family background was good, she didn't put on any airs. The two of them had always hoped that their daughter could get along with such a good kid. But who would have thought that the sheep was actually a wolf? At such a young age, her mind was already so vicious. Just because of a moment of jealousy, she was able to do such a thing to others. More importantly, after such a serious accident, the Yi Qing actually escaped. Even if she didn't do it on purpose, my daughter was still pushed aside by her. Today, I'll have a good chat with your homeroom teacher. What I want to ask Yi Qing's parents, do they think they can do whatever they want just because they're rich?" Father Yang raged. "Uncle, auntie, we're really sorry." The other students all felt bad and hurriedly apologized. "It's not your fault." Father Yang also helplessly waved his hand, then turned to Jing Yunzhao and said, "Jing Yunzhao, right? This time, I still have to thank you for my daughter's matter." If his daughter's eyes had problems, when she woke up, how was she going to live? "Jing Yunzhao, how did you know how to treat the wound? Your reaction at that time scared me. I thought you were possessed. However, you should be more careful the next time you encounter something like this. After all, you're not a doctor. It's fine if you can't save him, but what if it gets worse? At the crucial moment, Jiang Xia added. Xiao Haiqing was so angry that she rolled her eyes. She had never seen someone like this. Even the other students couldn't take it anymore. They weren't fools. They wouldn't listen to whatever Jiang Xia said. Jiang Xia, how can you say that? Jing Yunzhao was so handsome at that time. His actions were so decisive. One look and you could tell that he was very confident. Immediately, a classmate chimed in. Jiang Xia replied, "You don't understand. One of my uncles is a doctor. It's very complicated to know the dosage of the herbs. In the past, I've seen many people who didn't know anything about medicine but pretended to know how to save people. In the end, they killed people. How terrible it is to encounter such a quack." Jiang Xia's words made everyone's face turn pale. Uncle Yang, it was an emergency. Because it was too sudden, I didn't think too much about it. However, I have studied medicine for a period of time. I've seen Tiantian's situation before. That's why I was so decisive. Although there are a lot of quacks in this world, there are also a lot of arrogant people who speculate about people's hearts. If everyone is like those people who only know how to make sarcastic remarks, Tian will really be in danger this time. Jing Yunzhao didn't hold back his words. Chapter 66. With regards to Jiang Xia's character, Jing Yunzhao could be considered to be in awe. If Jiang Xia was doing it on purpose, then so be it. However, he was born with this kind of self-righteous nature. He didn't even realize what was wrong with his words, or what kind of harm it would bring to others. These scheming words came out of his mouth as if it was nothing out of the ordinary, and he thought that others wouldn't understand. In the past life, Jing Yunzhao and Jiang Xia only got to know each other a few years later. At that time, Jiang Xia had already gone through some training, so his words weren't as annoying as they were now. However, there was still a hint of his true nature hidden within. Especially when he saw Jiang Xia and Chao Hongye having some sort of argument, his true nature became more and more obvious. Jiang Xia's looks weren't bad, and he didn't have any private interactions with others. When the other students saw him, most of them were him playing basketball or dealing with class matters. Who would have thought that he would speak so bluntly in private? However, even though Jiang Xia didn't seem to mean it, his IQ wasn't that bad. The vile person that Jing Yunzhao was talking about was naturally him. Jing Yunzhao, who are you calling a vile person? He couldn't help but reprimand. Jing Yunzhao coldly laughed, don't you know it yourself? I say, why are you like this? Jiang Xia was immediately dissatisfied. Just as he was about to continue, a commotion came from the room. Everyone turned around to look. It was a couple and teacher Jean. The couple looked a bit familiar. Jiang Xia even swallowed back his previous words. He stared at them and called out, Uncle Yi, Auntie Yi. Why are you guys dressed like this? The people who came were Yi Qing's parents. Father Yi was wearing a suit, but it was a bit wrinkled. He looked like he was down and out. His body reeked of alcohol and cigarettes, his face was full of stubble, and his hair was greasy. Mother Yi was even more different from her previous glamorous self. She was wearing a supermarket worker's uniform. Now was the beginning of the second year of high school. The students had only known each other for half a year. Even though the students knew that Yi Qing's family was pretty good, they didn't know what her parents did for a living. Only Jiang Xia was different. Yi Qing had mentioned to Jiang Xia before that her father was a boss, her mother was a full-time housewife, and her family was also very wealthy. He had even met Yi Qing's parents twice. At that time, Yi Qing's parents were driving a car worth millions. The father had a successful career, and the mother was also graceful and luxurious. They were clearly different from the other parents. But why was it different from what he remembered? Jiang Xia's innocent question made Father Yi and Mother Yi somewhat embarrassed. This must be Brother Yang and Auntie Yang, right? I'm really sorry. I am Yi Qing's mother. Just now, Teacher Jean has already informed us. My daughter is not sensible and has caused your daughter to suffer. Mother Yi hurriedly placed the fruits she brought in front of the bed and bowed. Father Yang turned around and walked away. Mother Yang's face was still ugly. I don't dare to accept your courtesy. My family's girl has been injured for a few hours, but your family's Yi Qing didn't even show up to take a look. Father Yang coldly said. It's just a conflict between kids. They weren't unreasonable people. If their daughter was fine and the other party's attitude was good enough, then this matter could have been easily settled. But in the end, the Yi Qing didn't even show up. Yi Qing's father was a bit muddle-headed and didn't say anything. Instead, it was Mother Yi who kept apologizing. My family's child is not sensible. I'm afraid she was scared and still hasn't returned home. It's all my fault for not being able to bring her here to apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Chapter 67. Jing Yunzhao felt some sympathy for this woman who was forced to commit suicide by her daughter in his past life. At that time, Yi Qing's mother's story was the talk of the town. Her husband's family took a nosedive, and her husband never recovered. Later on, he even became addicted to gambling. It was all because of her that the family was supported by several part-time jobs, and even had to work hard to pay off debts. Even so, she didn't let her daughter drop out of school, and even under her daughter's insistence, she kept her daughter's face. Although she was able to support the entire family, she couldn't support her daughter's endless plundering. An unreliable husband, and an untrustworthy daughter, directly pushed her to the brink of death. Seeing this woman kneeling and apologizing to others for her daughter, Jing Yunzhao also had mixed feelings. Some people yearn for a mother like this but can't get it, while some people have it but don't cherish it. Under Mrs. Ye's endless apologies, the Yang family's parents seemed to have calmed down a bit, but their mouths still didn't let her off, and kept on talking about how to educate their daughter. Mrs. Yi continued to agree, and didn't dare to retort. As for Mr. Yi, he felt a bit embarrassed, and actually turned around and left. Oh right, Auntie Yi, Yi Qing still owes the hotel some money. Since the hotel owner is here, why don't you go back and settle it with him? After all, it's her treat. Jiang Xia inappropriately reminded her. His pair of eyes curiously looked at Yi Qing's mother, and he also had some plans in mind. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have said this, but he just wanted to see if this Yi family was really as rich as Yi Qing said. Mrs. Ye's face went pale. So it's like this. How much? Not much, only half, so there's still 1,600 left. Jiang Xia added. The other students' faces all turned red. The hotel owner, Li Xiaoyun, raised his eyebrows, and looked at Jiang Xia as if he had just discovered a new continent. His attitude was also quite shocked. There's something wrong with him here. Tilting his head, he pointed at Jing Yunzhao and whispered. Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched, and he held back his laughter. You can say that. Li Xiaoyun smirked and revealed a look of sudden realization. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and looked very eye-catching. The three words, 1,600, hit Yi Mu's heart fiercely. Her eyes were a little red. She hurriedly put on her pockets, but in the end, she only turned out a few hundred yuan. Seeing everyone watching, she was only one step away from collapse. Auntie Yi, Jiang Xia was just joking. I've already paid for it. If you don't believe me, you can ask this person. Jing Yunzhao pointed at the man beside her. What was his name again? My surname is Li, Li as in dawn, Xiao as in young master, and Li Xiaoyun as in clouds floating in the sky, the man replied with a smile. Yes, Boss Li won't accept it again, Jing Yunzhao added. At the side, Xiao Haiqing's brows furrowed. She stared at Jing Yunzhao in confusion, but when she saw Jing Yunzhao's gentle gaze, she swallowed her words back down. To be honest, even though she hated Yi Qing, it was hard for her to have any ill feelings towards this mother who seemed to be in a panic. Yi Mu's tears immediately fell. She hurriedly placed the few hundred yuan in Jing Yunzhao's hands. I can't let you pay for it. I was in a hurry today, so I didn't bring much. I'll pay you back later. Thank you, little classmate. Jing Yunzhao clearly knew that the reason Yi Mu didn't mention the Yi family's bankruptcy wasn't for her own face, but for Yi Qing. Oh right, the medical fees, Yi Mu suddenly thought of the medical fees and panicked. But before she could finish, Li Xiaoyun interrupted, the fees have already been paid. Chapter 68. No matter how stupid Yi Qing's mother was, she could tell that Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyun saw her financial situation and decided to help her. She was both touched and guilty. Ever since her family went bankrupt, her life had not been easy. For the sake of her daughter, she had endured all the grievances. But now, she realized that the daughter she had always been proud of was not as strong and sensible as she had imagined. This was almost the last straw that broke her back. She even regretted spoiling her daughter so much before. Actually, Mother Yi didn't have many problems with her education before, but it was mainly because of Father Yi. Father Ye's life these past few years had been smooth sailing, and he only had one daughter, so naturally he let Yi Qing do whatever she wanted. As long as Yi Qing asked, he would definitely give it to her. Mother Ye's education was already too late, because Yi Qing knew from a young age that she was the princess of the family. With her father here, even her mother couldn't stop her from getting what she wanted. Thank you guys. When I find my daughter, I'll definitely bring her here to apologize. Mother Yi had tears in her eyes and was speechless. The mistake was already made, yet her daughter didn't even have the courage to admit her mistakes. What else could she do? After Mother Yi finished speaking, Jiang Xia was about to speak, but Jing Yunzhao directly said, "It's not good for us to stay here and affect Tiantian's rest. Auntie Yi, Auntie Yang, we'll all leave first. We'll come back when Tian wakes up." Mother Yang nodded. With so many people, it was definitely noisy. Jiang Xia somewhat irritably stared at Jing Yunzhao, who wants to leave. But since he already said that, Li Xiaoyun and Jing Yunzhao even turned around and left. Everyone else also agreed, so he didn't have a chance to refuse. Although they left, Mother Yi, as the mother of the perpetrator, still stayed in the room to take care of her. When Jing Yunzhao and the others left, Jiang Xia couldn't help but say, "Don't you guys think Auntie Yi is weird? And Uncle Yi, he wasn't like this when I saw him before. Also, the Yi family is so rich, yet Auntie Yi only brought a few hundred yuan out. Oh right, the most important thing is what she's wearing. Jiang Xia, I think you're the weirdest." One of the classmates opened his mouth. "That's right. I didn't think you were like this. Although Yi Qing is annoying, what does it have to do with her mother?" Jiang Xia's classmates immediately added. Jing Yunzhao pursed his lips in agreement. Usually, the things that Jiang Xia said about her were just trivial matters. Every time, she pretended not to hear it and let it go. But now, he was being too inconsiderate. "What's wrong with you guys? I didn't say anything wrong." In the past, Yi Qing always pretended to be rich, but now it seems to be fake. I was just afraid that we would all be deceived by her again. Jiang Xia was completely oblivious to the reason why he had angered the crowd. He even felt that the others were behaving strangely. Especially when she saw Jing Yunzhao pursing his lips and smiling, she became even angrier. Jing Yunzhao, you said that you would pay for the hotel. Don't tell me you're going back on your word after leaving the hotel. Of course not. Jing Yunzhao smiled, but his eyes were cold. But since it's my treat, do I have the right to refuse some people's free food and drink? What do you mean? We've all eaten, and you still want us to pay back. Jiang Xia rolled his eyes, his face full of disdain. Although Yi Qing was puffing himself up at his own cost, he wasn't as stingy as Jing Yunzhao. Jing Yunzhao chuckled and rubbed her hands together. Suddenly, she threw a punch towards Jiang Xia's abdomen. I'm not going to pay you back, but I can make you spit it out. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.